Chapter 345. Since Lu Tianling and Lao Tzu had reached the Dharma stage, the status of their disciples in the sect would naturally rise as well. However, the first person to present a gift was not the second disciple of Chonghua Palace, enlightened Master Li Xuanru, but the eldest disciple of Carefree Manor, enlightened Master Xintian. Some of the cultivators who didn't know what was going on were flabbergasted, especially the newly advanced Golden Core enlightened masters. They curiously asked the seniors of their sects when Chonghua sect gained a 6th-layer core forging senior disciple. Moreover, it was a man. Enlightened Master Xintian held a jade box in his hand and respectfully bowed. Disciple Xintian congratulates Master for reaching the Dharma stage. I hereby present 3 warm jade flowers, wishing Master a true spirit and eternal life. Warm jade flowers? Lu Ping looked at the 3 jade-carved flowers in the box in surprise. These flowers had the same effect as the golden nut in his hand, which could strengthen a cultivator's body. Lu Ping knew that the Avatar Grand Ancestor seemed to have a special preference for this kind of treasure. Lu Ping knew that the Avatar Grand Ancestor was fond of it. There were naturally cultivators in the palace of Chonghua Palace who were knowledgeable. Some cultivators who didn't know the use of these things also asked the knowledgeable cultivators. The cultivators in the palace were all core forging realm enlightened masters. They had more or less heard about the Dharma stage, especially the late core forging realm enlightened masters. When they heard about the effects of this spirit medicine, they looked at Wen Yuhua with endless envy. Lu Tianling and Lao Tzu looked at Xintian with a warm expression. Xintian, get up. Why isn't Xinhui here? Taoist Master Xinhui was Taoist Master Xuantian's Tao companion. Taoist Master Xintian replied, "Please forgive me, mistress. Xinhui has been cultivating in seclusion since last year and has yet to come out. This has delayed mistress's Dharma celebration." Old Ancestor Lu Tianling nodded and didn't say anything. On the side, enlightened Master Xintian saw that Old Ancestor Lu didn't ask any more questions, so he retreated. Lu Ping noticed that when his teacher asked about enlightened Master Xinhui, not only did 2nd Senior Martial Sister, 3rd Senior Martial Sister, and 4th Senior Martial Sister looked nervous, but the other 3 Senior Martial Brothers were also stunned. It wasn't until enlightened Master Xinhui left that everyone's expression finally relaxed. The second person to offer a gift wasn't Li Xuanru, but Carefree Manor's second disciple, Taoist Master Xiangua. Although Taoist Master Xiangua's gift wasn't anything special, just 9 stalks of 3,000-year-old spirit herbs, Taoist Master Xiangua used his own name to present a gift, so it was quite generous. Then, it was Reverend Li Xuanru's turn. Reverend Li Xuanru was the eldest disciple of Chonghua Manor, so her gift was naturally eye-catching. With Spirit Pill, Lu Ping was very surprised that 2nd Senior Sister actually had this kind of special pill in her hands, and there were even 3 of them. Although this kind of pill wasn't lost, it was almost non-existent in the world of practitioners. This was because, in addition to the difficulty of making a half-step transcendence pill, there was also an important spiritual guidance, and this spiritual guidance was more or less related to Lu Ping, which was the heart of a wood phoenix during the core forging stage. Wood spirit pills weren't meant for practitioners to consume, but to accelerate the growth of spirit herbs. Legend had it that a wood phoenix's golden pill in the hands of a transcendence adept was enough to accelerate the growth of tens or even hundreds of 3,000-year-old spirit herbs. This was also the reason why the wood phoenix was gradually becoming extinct in the world of practitioners. Naturally, wood spirit pills didn't have that kind of effect, but wood spirit pills that used the heart of a wood phoenix as the spiritual guidance was enough to accelerate the growth of a few 3,000-year-old spirit herbs. The value of the wood spirit pill wasn't in its acceleration, but in its selectivity. 3,000-year-old spirit herbs were treasures that could only be encountered by luck and not sought after. When transcendence adepts were refining pills, they would often be short on 1 or 2 spirit herbs and would have to spend a lot of time looking for them. However, with the wood spirit pill in hand, they could accelerate the ripening of any 3,000-year-old spirit herbs that were not yet ripe and needed urgently. In the world of practitioners, the wood spirit pill was considered a relatively obscure pill. Most of the practitioners in the hall didn't know about it, but this made them even more certain that it was an extremely valuable treasure. Next, Third senior sister Zhao Xuanji and fourth senior sister Wang Xianjing went up one after another, followed by Carefree Manner's fourth disciple, Reverend Xiansheng, and fifth disciple, Reverend Xianhan. When it was Lu Ping's turn to go up, many practitioners in the Hall of Chonghua were paying attention to him. They all wanted to see what kind of treasure this core-forging sage, who had suddenly risen to fame in the North Sea world of practitioners, would bring out. In fact, outside of the Chonghua Palace, the North Sea practitioners who had come to participate in the Dharma Realm Assembly were already gasping in surprise when the perfected masters of the various sects performed the ceremony. In the eyes of these practitioners, these treasures usually only existed in legends. Now that they had seen the real thing, their respect for the great sects grew even more. This was also the purpose of Jinling's promotion of the prestige of his own sect. Through word of mouth from these practitioners, Jinling's status in the North Sea world of practitioners would increase and attract more practitioners to join them. When it was the turn of the disciples to present their gifts, the practitioners were even more shocked. If the previous ceremony had appeared as a whole, then although the gifts were precious, they were nothing compared to the foundation of these forces. Now that the disciples of Tianling Laozu were presenting gifts purely based on their own foundation, if the practitioners in the Hall of Chonghua were praising Jinling's prestige and letting the other sects bask in the glory, then now it was time for Jinling's family to perform. Lu Ping slowly stepped forward, a foot-long jade plate in his hand. 3 large spirit peaches with glowing surfaces were held in his hand. He said to his teacher, "Disciple Lu Ping presents 3 spirit peaches. I wish teacher a long and prosperous life." The observing cultivators were somewhat stunned when they saw the spirit peaches in Lu Ping's hand. Such large spirit peaches were rare in the world of cultivation. Among mortals, longevity peaches had the meaning of longevity. However, in the world of cultivation, there were no famous spirit fruits called peaches. Although Lu Xianping was the 9th disciple of Tianling Laozu, he was actually Laozu's last disciple. Back then, Lu Tianling Laozu had caused a huge ruckus in the Yuan family for this missing disciple. It was a big event that shocked the world of cultivation in the North Sea. Now, he was only presenting 3 ordinary spirit peaches as a congratulatory gift. It was really impolite. Many cultivators shook their heads and sighed. Others watched coldly from the sidelines, as if watching Jinling make a fool of himself. Could these be spirit peaches? Just as the people in the hall were whispering, the person who suddenly spoke surprised Lu Ping. It was enlightened Master Lin Shuqing from Xianling sect, one of the 9 great sections. Senior Lin is very knowledgeable. Lu Ping smiled. These are the 3,000-year spirit peaches that I obtained by chance. Enlightened Master Lin Shuqing continued. Did you obtain these spirit peaches from the peach blossom tree spirit? Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He shook his head. Peach blossom tree spirit? I've never seen it before, but I received it from a senior who said that these 3 spirit peaches are called spirit demon peaches. From Senior Lin's words, it seems that you're very familiar with these spirit demon peaches. Could you explain to me? Lu Ping's words had greatly reduced the doubts in enlightened Master Lin Shuqing's heart. Although Lin Shuqing did not want to talk about the spirit peaches again, Lu Ping's question was beautiful. At this moment, all the cultivators in the hall and outside the hall were looking at him inquisitively. If he did not answer, he would give off a feeling that he was too high and mighty to explain, which would damage Xianling's sect's reputation. Enlightened Master Lin Shuqing pondered for a moment, then said, "There is a special kind of demon called spirit beasts. These spirit beasts are demon cultivators, but their wisdom is awakened by plants, trees, bamboo, and stones. They can only be cultivated for a very long time. This is because the 7th patriarch of the heaven-splitting sect did not pass down many inheritances regarding spirit beasts, and the few that he did have were mostly fragmented. It is not enough for a spirit beast to cultivate to the Dharma manifestation stage, let alone to become a true spirit. Moreover, the appearance of spirit beasts is very rare. Usually, it takes tens of thousands of years for a spirit beast to awaken its wisdom. Spirit beasts that awaken their wisdom do not have any cultivation inheritances, and usually only reach the blood condensation stage by instinct. However, because these spirit beasts have lived for too long, almost every spirit beast's body is full of natural treasures, and they are coveted by both human and demon cultivators. That is why it is very rare to see spirit beasts in the cultivation world. Enlightened Master Lin Shuqing paused, then said, "These 3 spirit demon peaches are the fruits of the peach tree demon. If the spirit qi contained within them is refined into a medicinal pill, it will be the most precious medicinal pill for Dharma manifestation." However, Martial Nephew Lu said that these 3 spirit demon peaches were left behind by a predecessor. This predecessor is very skillful, to be able to preserve the spirit fruits so well after leaving the peach tree demon. Enlightened Master Lin Shuqing only briefly explained about spirit beasts, then stopped talking. In the end, he even schemed against Lu Ping, causing people to suspect that Lu Ping had actually obtained a peach tree demon. Lu Ping was a little regretful. He actually did not know much about spirit beasts, and this time, he had fallen into Lin Shuqing's trap. However, he still smiled and said, "Thank you, Elder Lin, for clearing my doubts. I did not think that the 3 spirit peaches that I obtained by chance would have such a background." Enlightened Master Lin Shuqing nodded slightly and did not speak anymore. His expression was a little unhappy. Lu Ping did not mind and presented the spirit demon peaches. He heard his teacher laugh softly and say, "Ninth brother, you are always able to come up with something unique. Aren't you afraid that people will take your title of cultivator with many treasures for granted?" Lu Ping knew that his teacher was reminding him not to be targeted by people with ulterior motives. At the same time, he was warning everyone present not to be greedy. As a Dharma manifestation cultivator, Lao Tzu's warning naturally carried a lot of weight. Chapter 346. In the cultivation world, during lectures and Tao discussions, sparring was not rare. It was not rare for such things to happen during the Dharma Idol Assembly. In the process of sparring, most people would stop at the appropriate point, and they would stop when they had gained something. However, during the Dharma Manifestation Assembly of the Zhenling cultivators, a Xianling sect disciple had issued a challenge. This meant that the sparring process had changed somewhat. Furthermore, Ouyang Weijian had insisted on sparring with Lu Ping. Before Lu Ping could say anything, the atmosphere in the Hall of Repetitive Light was already thick with gunpowder. "How dare you? All the seniors present have yet to speak. How dare you? A junior, speak up. Hurry up and apologize to Tianling Laozu and all the seniors." Perfected Master Lin Shuqing shouted at Ouyang Weijian. However, his voice sounded like the 2 of them were putting on a show. "Haha, Perfected Master Lin, please don't blame the junior like this." The one who spoke was the Flying Feather Sect cultivator who had rebuked AI Shu Yao on the Spirit Qi steps. Martial Nephew Ouyang must have admired Martial Nephew Lu's reputation for a long time. Martial Nephew Lu was only at the early core forging stage when he fought against a mid-core forging stage cultivator. Although both of them are disciples of the Zhenling sect, it is still a rare achievement. I heard that Martial Nephew Ouyang once fought against a mid-core forging stage demonic cultivator as a third-core forging stage cultivator and rose to the 39th place on the North Sea Rising talent list. The Flying Feather sect had always followed Xianling sect's lead. This perfected master's words could be considered sinister. When he mentioned the battle between Lu Ping and Li Xinliang, he was implying that both of them belonged to the Zhenling sect and that the duel was not accurate. On the contrary, Ouyang Weijian fought against the demonic cultivator, and there was no possibility of him cheating. In fact, when Ouyang Weijian came to participate in the Dharma Manifestation Assembly, Lu Ping already knew that the 2 of them might have to fight. Thus, he had asked his fellow sect members about Ouyang Weijian's past achievements. Ouyang Weijian's battle with the mid-core forging stage demonic cultivator happened when Ouyang Weijian had just advanced to the third core forging stage. Ouyang Weijian had actually lost that battle, but the perfected master demonic cultivator could not do anything to him and could only allow him to retreat. Ouyang Weijian's fame rose from that battle. Later, it was said that Ouyang Weijian devoted himself to cultivation and his swordsmanship improved greatly. When he sparred with Xianling's mid-core forging stage demonic cultivator, he was able to gain the upper hand. Although it was unknown to what realm his swordsmanship had reached, it was certain that he had reached the stage of unity of sword and practice. At this moment, the sky spirit Lao Tzu spoke, Since martial nephew Ouyang wishes to liven things up with swordsmanship, as his seniors, we should also test the cultivation achievements of the younger generation. In that case, old Gio, you should spar with martial nephew Ouyang. Don't overdo it, but don't harm his life. The sky spirit Lao Zu's words sounded as if he was telling Lu Ping not to harm Ouyang Weijian's life, as if he was certain that Ouyang Weijian was no match for Lu Ping. Ouyang Weijian's expression changed when he heard this, but he did not dare to disrespect the sky spirit Lao Zu. Thus, he leaped to the center of the hall and said, "Please enlighten me, Brother Lu." Lu Ping smiled and stepped into the hall. He turned to Ouyang Weijian and said, "Brother Ouyang is too polite. Please." The two of them leaped out of the hall and hovered in the air above the small lake outside the Hall of Repetitive Beauty. Be it the cultivators who were participating in the Dharma Characteristic Assembly or the cultivators who were attending the ceremony outside the hall, they were all shocked. Divine senses filled the sky and swept over, circling around the two of them. Many divine senses seemed to have come from the other cave abodes on Tianling Mountain, and they were also very interested in this sword competition. Lu Ping and Ouyang Weijian could be said to be the leaders of the new generation of cultivators in the North Sea's cultivation world. Although they were only ranked 34th and 39th on the North Sea rookie list, the list recorded core forging cultivators under 100 years old. Currently, Lu Ping and Ouyang Weijian were only in their 40s or 50s. In the eyes of other core forging perfected masters, they were as young as demons. Before Ouyang Weijian decided to challenge Lu Ping, he had done a deep understanding of the battle between Lu Ping and Li Xinliang. After Lu Ping used 5 minor magical abilities in a row, when he used the last minor magical ability, Torrent of Sword Techniques, he was unable to completely control it. It was clear that he had reached the limit of the magical abilities that Lu Ping could control, and this was the biggest reason why Ouyang Weijian was confident that he could defeat Lu Ping. The golden scale sword, which was covered in scales, revolved around Lu Ping, its tip pointed at Ouyang Weijian. Ouyang Weijian looked at the golden scale sword and sensed the sword intent coming from it. He suddenly smiled confidently, and the sound of a sword rang out. A cyan flexible sword that looked like a spirit snake appeared around Ouyang Weijian. The flexible sword seemed to be swimming in the air. Not only did it sway and twist at will, but it also seemed to be able to lengthen and shorten at will. A psychic magic treasure. When Lu Ping saw this magic treasure, his expression turned serious. It wasn't because a psychic magic treasure was more powerful than an ordinary magic treasure that could only condense 3 treasure seals, but because Ouyang Weijian's cultivation was only at the 3rd stage of core forging. It was impossible for him to condense a psychic magic treasure with 4 treasure seals. In other words, Ouyang Weijian's natal flying sword hadn't appeared. In other words, like Lu Ping, Ouyang Weijian still had a trump card. The first to strike was Ouyang Weijian. His flexible sword was like a taut spirit snake. In the blink of an eye, nearly 1,000 sword silhouettes flew towards Lu Ping. They were like sentient wind snakes, their tongues flicking in and out of their mouths, bearing their sharp and poisonous fangs as they swarmed towards Lu Ping. Gale Sword. Psychic Sword Light. Ouyang Weijian's first move was the fiercest sword technique in the Merry 18 Swords. It was second only to the unity of sword and practiced minor technique. The Merry 18 Swords wasn't just one set of sword technique, but a total of 18 sets of sword techniques. Each sword technique was a complete set of sword techniques. These 18 sets of sword techniques were interlinked and developed step by step. In the end, they would become the foundation of a major sword technique. Lu Ping had once obtained the Merry 18 Swords from Reverend Liang Xianfeng. Although it wasn't a secret technique of Xianling sect, it lacked a lot of essence, especially the key to combining several sets of sword techniques after reaching the unity of sword and practiced realm. This was the most important part of Xianling sect's sword technique inheritance. It was usually passed down by word of mouth within the sect. Even so, Lu Ping had a very clear understanding of this set of sword technique. The golden scale sword launched later but arrived first. The 1,296 sword rays morphed into nimble water snakes and pounced on the wind snakes. Each water snake's attack could annihilate a wind snake. In Lu Ping's eyes, Ouyang Weijian's strong wind sword was like a venomous snake that was ready to expose its weak spot. The strong wind sword was instantly countered by Lu Ping. Ouyang Weijian was a little surprised. He seemed to be surprised that Lu Ping could break his sword technique so easily, but he didn't panic. Just as the wind serpents were vanquished by the water serpents, Ouyang Weijian unleashed 6 sword techniques in a row. Ardent Wind Sword Technique, Gale Sword Technique, Gale Sword Technique, Swift Wind Sword Technique, and Storm Sword Technique. Ouyang Weijian compressed the essence of each of the 6 sword techniques into one sword technique and slashed it towards Lu Ping. This was also one of the unique features of the Merry 18 swords. This set of sword technique wasn't like ordinary sword techniques that went from easy to difficult. On the contrary, it went from difficult to easy. It was said that the senior who created this set of sword technique was a grandmaster in swordsmanship. This set of sword technique was originally a great divine swordsmanship that this grandmaster directly comprehended. Later, in order to pass down this great divine swordsmanship, the senior had to simplify this divine swordsmanship into 3 types of minor divine swordsmanship. Then, from these 3 minor divine swordsmanship, each evolved into 6 sets of sword techniques, which later became the signature sword technique of Xianling sect, Merry 18 swords. Later on, when the cultivators studied this set of sword technique, they would be able to start from the simplest sword technique and refine it to the extreme. Then, they would be able to evolve the entire set of sword technique into one sword technique, reaching the realm of sword intent. Then, they would be able to combine the 6 swords into one sword technique, reaching the power of the sword technique's minor divine ability. Finally, they would be able to combine the 3 minor divine abilities into one sword technique. Then, they would be able to achieve the great divine ability of the sword technique that Xianling sect's predecessors had comprehended. This also caused the cultivation of the Merry 18 swords to be different from ordinary sword techniques. Orthodox sword techniques were generally divided into 3 stages in the realm of sword intent: complex sword practice, psychic sword ray, and unity sword practice. Usually, cultivators followed this order when practicing sword techniques. But for the 18 swords, before each set of sword technique reached the realm of psychic sword ray, every 9 psychic sword ray had to be combined into one sword technique. Then, when the entire set of sword techniques was combined into one sword technique, it would become a minor divine swordsmanship. 6 sets of sword techniques combined into 6 swordsmanships that seemed to contain the full power of the 6 sets of sword techniques. Lu Ping swung his sword horizontally, and the 1,296 psychic sword rays turned into 6 psychic sword dragons that whizzed toward the 6 swordsmanships. Amidst the clanging sounds, the 6 psychic sword dragons were cut down, and the 6 swordsmanships seemed to have lost their power after cutting the psychic sword dragons, losing control and flying in all directions. However, at this moment, the 6 swordsmanships suddenly converged from different directions, and an even more dazzling sword ray was formed, flying straight toward Lu Ping. 6 swordsmanships as one, a minor divine swordsmanship. Lu Ping's gold scale sword vibrated once more, transforming into a psychic sword dragon that pounced forward. The psychic sword dragon disintegrated, and the gold scale sword returned to Lu Ping's hand. As for Ouyang Weijian's 6 swordsmanships as one minor divine swordsmanship, it was also dispersed. In this confrontation, it seemed that the 2 of them were still evenly matched. However, Lu Ping knew that he was at a disadvantage. Ouyang Weijian had only attacked once, while Lu Ping's gold scale sword had attacked twice. Of course, Ouyang Weijian had the advantage of his Dharma treasure. After all, the gold scale sword was no match for his opponent's psychic Dharma treasure. Ouyang Weijian smiled proudly, and the psychic flying sword drew a strange and unpredictable trajectory in the air. 6 swordsmanships scattered from the rapidly flying psychic flying sword before merging back into one, attaching themselves to the main body of the psychic flying sword and attacking it. Lu Ping's face turned grim, and his psychic flying sword burst out with his divine sense, trying his best to capture the trajectory of the psychic flying sword in the sky. The gold scale sword flew out of his hand, and the true essence one sword strike transformed into a gigantic sword that reached into the sky, slashing at the main body of the psychic flying sword. Chapter 347. Another ear-piercing sound of metal clashing rang out in the sky. The golden scale sword turned around and flew back. The psychic flexible sword trembled and lost its chance to attack Lu Ping again. The two attacks were evenly matched. Ouyang Weijian's expression changed. Lu Ping's golden scale sword was actually able to grab onto his flying sword. Although his sword technique wasn't the strongest, it was the most unpredictable and unpredictable. When the opponent realized that something was amiss, the sword technique would have already struck its target. Ouyang Weijian's expression changed. What he didn't know was that Lu Ping's divine sense far exceeded that of cultivators of the same level. Now, it was not inferior to cultivators of the 5th or 6th layer of the core forging realm. Furthermore, Lu Ping had the 3 pure true eyes. With the coordination of the two, he was able to capture the location of the psychic flexible sword. However, the psychic flexible sword had the advantage of the magic treasure. Although the golden scale sword had found its flaw and struck the sword first, no one was able to gain the upper hand. Ouyang Weijian's fingers moved like butterflies flying through flowers. One sword sign after another was formed. The psychic flexible sword trembled and countless sword lights and wind blades covered the sky as they rushed towards Lu Ping. The psychic flexible sword flashed and disappeared among the sword lights and wind blades. Lu Ping suddenly took a step back in the air. The golden scale sword drew a circle in the sky. It looked as if it had pierced through a celestial river. A torrent of sword arts rushed towards the sword lights and wind blades that filled the sky. A shattering explosion sounded as if firecrackers had been set off in the sky. A large number of sword lights and wind blades and torrents of sword arts were annihilated in the sky at the same time. A breeze was able to pass through the spiritual power turbulence caused by the collision of the two minor divine abilities and blow towards Lu Ping. A cyan light flashed in Lu Ping's eyes. He swung the golden scale sword horizontally, but it hit empty air. Lu Ping quickly retreated. The golden scale sword suddenly turned into a slash in the middle of thrusting forward. Amidst a crisp ringing sound, the golden scale sword finally struck the psychic soft sword. However, the soft sword wasn't knocked away by Lu Ping's attack. Instead, it suddenly bent to neutralize the force from the golden scale sword. The body of the sword suddenly thinned and the tip of the sword enlarged, stabbing straight at Lu Ping. This was beyond Lu Ping's expectations. The golden scale sword was too late to block. As Lu Ping quickly retreated, Lu Ping's vigor chi quickly appeared around him to protect him. Minor divine ability of protection. Water screen genuine aura. Ouyang Weijian finally forced Lu Ping to use his minor divine ability of protection. Ouyang Weijian smiled coldly. So what if it was a minor divine ability of protection? The psychic flexible sword was also known as the wishful sword. It was best at piercing through the opponent's minor divine ability, like a needle-shaped Dharma treasure. The psychic flexible sword stabbed into the water screen genuine aura, but it was stuck halfway. Ouyang Weijian's cold smile immediately froze on his face. How was this possible? How could his minor divine ability of protection be so powerful that it could actually withstand the stab of a needle-shaped Dharma treasure, even if the stab had been weakened beforehand? Gold, blue, and green colors flickered with each other, but at different times. The area of 30 feet around Lu Ping seemed to be a world under Lu Ping's control. When the psychic flexible sword entered it, the spiritual essence on the sword was first corroded, then the force on the sword was weakened. Then, a sticky feeling attached to the sword, making it difficult for the psychic flexible sword to advance any further. This person's minor divine ability of protection is much more tyrannical than cultivators of the same level. It is almost no weaker than ordinary Dharma treasures. No wonder this person has never used a Dharma treasure. If Lu Ping knew what Ouyang Weijian was thinking, he probably wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry. It wasn't that he didn't use a Dharma treasure, it was that he didn't have one on him. Fortunately, Lu Ping's Dharma Chi had already begun to condense the fourth heaven and earth treasure, the weak water. This was a water attribute heaven and earth treasure that Lu Ping obtained after killing the Kuan fish demon Kong Liang. It was probably prepared for the seven treasures thunder calabash. However, Kong Liang's cultivation was only at the third layer of core forging at the time, so he couldn't condense the fourth Dharma treasure for the seven treasures thunder calabash. He could only leave the weak water until he reached the middle stage of core forging. He didn't think that it would benefit Lu Ping. Although Lu Ping was amazed by the tyrannical power of the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash, he didn't intend to continue to condense this treasure. Therefore, after Lu Ping obtained the weak water, the first thing he thought of was to condense the fourth water attribute Heaven and Earth treasure for his minor divine ability of protection. Since the psychic flexible sword missed its target, Lu Ping quickly retreated. But how could he let go of such an opportunity to counterattack? He swung the golden scale sword thrice in the air, sending 3 sword waves towards Ouyang Weijian. Ouyang Weijian couldn't let Lu Ping take the initiative so easily. The spiritual soft sword that was flying back arched and returned to the size of an ordinary flying sword. It stabbed out 18 times in the sky in a row. It was the 18 sets of sword techniques in the merry 18 swords of wind. For a moment, both sides abandoned their minor divine abilities and fought with speed, intending to seize the initiative. The waves were caused by the wind. Although Lu Ping's Thousand Piles snow sword was sharp, it was restrained by Ouyang Weijian's wind attribute swordsmanship and couldn't display its endless momentum. Lu Ping's golden scale sword left his hand again, and the sword momentum changed again. The great river flows east sword technique was like a rolling torrent, rushing towards Ouyang Weijian with an indomitable momentum. For a moment, Ouyang Weijian seemed to have an illusion. It was as if he had transformed into a reef in the river, trying to stop the torrent from moving forward. In the end, he was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, drowning and being swept away by the torrent. The battle between Lu Ping and Ouyang Weijian could be said to be the highest level of the most outstanding young cultivators in the North Sea's cultivation world. All the cultivators watching from below, regardless of their cultivation level, were watching the battle in the sky with rapt attention. But in private, they were multitasking, discussing with their friends about the swordsmanship of the two, the changes in the swordsmanship, the techniques used to face the enemy, the flaws in the swordsmanship, and so on. After the two people in the sky gave up their powerful swordsmanship, the scene of the battle was less thrilling, but it became more exciting. The sky was full of flying wind snakes and swimming swordfish fighting each other. In the sky, one seemed to have turned into the source of the storm, while the other seemed to be the source of all water. At that moment, Lu Ping was missing the water ghost sword. If he had this sword, Lu Ping would have another trump card. At the very least, Lu Ping would be able to unleash the power of the invisible sword art. That way, he would be able to make up for the difference in quality between the golden scale sword and the psychic flexible sword. Just as Lu Ping thought of the water ghost sword, a thought flashed through his mind. He suddenly realized that he seemed to have overlooked something. At this moment, Lu Ping felt a great sense of danger looming over him. It was Ouyang Weijian's natal flying sword. Lu Ping did not hesitate. The golden scale sword once again transformed into a torrent of swordsmanship. However, this time, the torrent of swordsmanship was not aimed at his opponent. Instead, it surrounded Lu Ping to form a huge vortex. From the sky, it looked like a huge waterspout. The cultivators watching the battle all looked at Lu Tianling Laozu, who was sitting in the seat of honor. No matter how they looked at it, this swordsmanship was very similar to the great magic that Lu Tianling Laozu had used before she reached the Dharma manifestation stage. Although Lu Tianling Laozu was not a sword cultivator, her successful cultivation of the great magic, the waterspout, was indeed based on the swordsmanship recorded in the Lin Hai wave listening technique. Lu Ping had heard his teacher talk about it several times, and he had also heard his teacher talk about the cultivation method of the waterspout in detail. Naturally, he had used it as a reference. This time, Lu Ping turned the torrent of swordsmanship into a waterspout, not to hurt his opponent, but to protect himself. The wind blade formed by the psychic soft sword rushed towards the waterspout, intending to completely break it, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. However, immediately after the psychic soft sword, an invisible force turned into a black line that seemed to be able to devour the wind. A sound of metal clashing could be heard. The black line had already broken the waterspout in one fell swoop, and it slashed towards Lu Ping, who was hidden in the waterspout. However, The waterspout that was broken suddenly shrank and turned into a circulating torrent of swordsmanship again, blocking in front of the black sword light. The black flying sword broke through the torrent of swordsmanship, and the golden scale sword waited for it to exhaust itself. It collided with the black flying sword, and the golden scale sword was sent flying back. The black flying sword's attack was fruitless, but it created another opportunity for the psychic soft sword. You are indeed hiding your strength. You can freely change the torrent of swordsmanship. You don't look like you were unable to control your swordsmanship divine power after using it in the battle with Li Xianliang. But even so, you will definitely lose today. You are not the only one who has hidden their strength. Ouyang Weijian's mind raced, and the psychic soft sword took advantage of the moment when the golden scale sword was sent flying by his intrinsic flying sword to once again cast a sword minor divine power. This sword minor divine power was very different from the minor divine power formed by the Merry 18 swords. It was clearly a brand new sword technique. At that moment, Ouyang Weijian's intrinsic flying sword recovered from the collision with the golden scale sword. It scattered a semicircular arc in the sky, as though it had transformed into a folding fan. It suddenly fanned at the golden scale sword that had been sent flying. It was another sword minor divine power. Ouyang Weijian cast the two minor swordsmanship skills with all his might. The two minor swordsmanship skills seemed to be able to complement each other, as if they were meant to complement each other. The spirit-connected flexible sword and the natal flying sword were like two streams of wind that chased each other as they flew towards Lu Ping. Although the Merry 18 Swords is our sect's most famous sword technique, our Xianling sect has thousands of inheritances. How can we only have one set of sword techniques that can become a minor divine power? Ouyang Weijian's heart was cold. It was as though he could already see Lu Ping losing to his surprise combination of two minor divine powers. This was Ouyang Weijian's true trump card. Perfected Lin Shuqing sat upright in his seat and casually glanced at Lu Tianling and Lao Zhu. A faint smile appeared on his face. The spectators also shook their heads. He lost. This Lu Ping is still not Ouyang Weijian's match. After all, he's honed his skills by fighting against demonic cultivators. The tempering between life and death is not something that can be compared to hard work. This Lu Ping is not bad. Although he lost to Ouyang Weijian among cultivators of the same cultivation level, it's still a glorious defeat. Both of their sword techniques belong to the ranks of the same generation. Just when everyone thought that Lu Ping would admit defeat, a strange whistling sound of a sword suddenly appeared out of nowhere. An awe-inspiring sword intent soared into the sky, as if it was going to pierce through the sky. Some cultivators who like to hold flying swords in their hands as decorations suddenly realized that the flying swords in their hands seemed to be uncontrollably shaking violently. Different from the cultivators who didn't know what was going on, the expressions of the late-stage core forging spiritual masters from the 9 great sects all changed greatly. Perfected Lin Shuqing even jumped up. His expression kept changing. In the end, he looked at Lu Tianling and Lao Zhu beside him and sat down resentfully. However, his face was already so gloomy that it seemed like it was about to drip water. The two minor spells that Ouyang Weijian used to kill Lu Ping seemed to be under an inexplicable pressure at this moment. It seemed like they were going to break free from his control and collapse on their own. Ouyang Weijian's expression changed. Although he didn't know what Lu Ping was doing, he knew that this effect must be caused by Lu Ping. At this moment, a strange whistling sound rang out again. The golden scale sword had returned to Lu Ping's hand. At this moment, a great pressure directly pressed down on the psychic flexible sword and natal flying sword. This pressure didn't come from divine sense, but from sword intent. It came from a brand new realm of swordsmanship, a realm that could sublimate swordsmanship. This was the realm of great swordsmanship. Ouyang Weijian's face turned pale. He never thought that Lu Ping's swordsmanship had already reached such a height that he couldn't even reach. Lu Ping has been pretending to be weak. He's using himself to hone his swordsmanship, and he's also forcing me to use all of my means to show him all of my trump cards. Then, when I'm the most confident, he'll use the sharpest and most unbeatable method to defeat me in one fell swoop. Whether it's swordsmanship or state of mind, he'll suffer a complete defeat. Ouyang Weijian instantly understood what Lu Ping was thinking. A look of resentment rushed out, and his face suddenly became somewhat twisted. Ouyang Weijian's pair of minor swordsmanship spells became vulnerable in front of Lu Ping's all rivers run into the sea swordsmanship spell. The sword lights and wind blades that filled the sky were like young swallows flying into the forest. They were attracted by Lu Ping's all rivers run into the sea and disappeared like a drop of water falling into the sea. The psychic flexible sword and natal flying sword finally got rid of the attraction of Lu Ping's swordsmanship spell and flew back to Ouyang Weijian's side. Under the suppression of Lu Ping's swordsmanship spell, it would be difficult for them to do anything. This is a swordsmanship spell. Among the many cultivators watching the battle, someone finally recognized the swordsmanship realm Lu Ping displayed. Except for the core forging masters of the 9 great sects and Lu Tianling Laozu, the rest of the cultivators were in an uproar. Lu Ping had actually mastered a swordsmanship spell. He was only at the 3rd stage of core forging, but he was able to master a swordsmanship spell that was second only to the lightning-type spell. Chapter 348. Ouyang Weijian's meticulously laid-out pair of minor swordsmanship skills immediately crumbled in the face of Lu Ping's major swordsmanship skill. Ouyang Weijian's face was ashen, as if he had lost his parents. Lu Ping's earth-shattering sword technique disappeared in a flash, but the many cultivators watching from below were shocked. The various core forging masters in the palace of Zhonghua also had complicated expressions. Even Lu Tianling and Laozu had a look of joy on their faces. Lu Ping's senior sisters and brothers were even more surprised. Xintian Zhanren turned to Li Xuanru and asked, "Junior sister, when did junior brother Xinping learn such a great technique?" This time, he really shocked the world with a single brilliant feat. He grasped a great sword technique at the early core forging stage. No wonder he dared to cause trouble for Li Xinliang by himself. The North Sea rookie list will probably change again. With such a trump card, even I might not be able to do anything to him. Li Xuanru smiled and said, "Eldest senior brother must be joking. This 9th brother usually hides his good stuff. No wonder some people have given him the title of cultivator with many treasures. As for when he will be able to cultivate a great divine swordsmanship, let alone me as his senior sister, I'm afraid even master doesn't know. However, if even eldest senior brother can't do anything to him, then that's giving him too much credit." Xintian Zhanren said seriously, "This is not a joke. Whether or not one can master the great theurgy during the core forging stage, as well as the amount of great theurgy mastered, is often related to the level of a practitioner's strength after reaching the Dharma stage. Master and mistress were the most outstanding disciples of their generation. Both of them mastered the great theurgy not long after reaching the mid-core forging stage. After that, I don't know how many great theurgy they mastered before reaching the Dharma stage. I'm about to reach the late core forging stage, but I've only perfected one great technique. I've only just begun to figure out my second great technique. Junior brother is only at the early core forging stage and has already mastered a great technique. How can we accept this?" Wang Xinjing said in a low voice, "Eldest senior brother, you're being unreasonable. You've already started cultivating your second great ability, but I haven't even cultivated my first great ability yet. Compared to old 9th, wouldn't we be ashamed to death?" Second senior brother Daoist Xian Guo, who had always been difficult to talk to, suddenly said, "He is the same as master and master's wife. They are all peerless geniuses. We shouldn't compare ourselves to them. We should just be ourselves." As soon as Daoist Xian Guo finished speaking, everyone stopped talking. However, their hearts were filled with complicated feelings, and they all had their own plans. "Brother Ouyang, thanks for letting me win." Lu Ping put away the golden scale sword, cupped his hands, and said with a smile, "Ouyang Weijian was indeed worthy of being one of Xianling's sect's peerless geniuses." He quickly recovered from the despair and resentment. Although his face was still pale, he had regained his composure. He cupped his fists and forced a smile. "Brother Lu's swordsmanship is superb. I've learned a lot from it. I admit defeat." Ouyang Weijian was like a completely different person, which made Lu Ping think highly of him. This Ouyang Weijian is not simple. In any case, It is impossible for me to be the only one making progress in the world of cultivation. If Lu Ping had not mastered the great magical swordsmanship, he might not be a match for Ouyang Weijian in terms of swordsmanship. Unless Lu Ping thought of the aqua sword again. If he could upgrade it to a magic weapon and use the invisible sword technique, he could coordinate it with the golden scale sword. At that time, even if he didn't use the great magical swordsmanship, Ouyang Weijian would not be a match for him. Of course, if it was a life and death battle, Lu Ping would not be stupid enough to fight with only swordsmanship. Lu Ping's methods were not limited to swordsmanship. The two returned to the hall of Zhonghua and thanked Lu Tianling and Laozu before returning to their respective seats. At this time, Taoist Master Lin Shuqing said, "Martial nephew Lu is indeed a genius. To be able to comprehend the great magical swordsmanship at the early stage of core forging, I'm afraid this is unprecedented in the North Sea's cultivation world. Furthermore, martial nephew Lu is so young. In the future, I believe you will be invincible among the new generation of cultivators in the North Sea's cultivation world. Your future is limitless. I'm afraid your sect will be proud of you in the future." When Lu Ping first met enlightened Master Lin Suqing after failing Island Closed, Lu Ping always thought that enlightened Master Lin Suqing was a kind and honest person. But he didn't expect that enlightened Master Lin Suqing would intentionally slander him twice in a row. Perhaps it was because Feng Su Dao was too overbearing, or maybe it was because Xinling sect was forced by the circumstances, but Lu Ping always thought that enlightened Master Lin Suqing was a kind and honest person. If the title of the number 1 rising star of the North Sea was spread today, one could imagine what kind of trouble Lu Ping would encounter in the future. Because of Xinling's power, not many people came to challenge Lu Ping, but in the future, he would inevitably be schemed against behind his back. Since ancient times, the rafters that stuck out rotted first, and Lu Ping didn't want to lose his life without knowing why. Moreover, a sect's prestige was supported by countless cultivators. There had never been a sect that could be supported by just one cultivator. Although Taoist Master Laozu's words were simple and obvious, it might not be ineffective. Even if he had Dharma idol Laozu as his teacher, he might still be oppressed by people with ulterior motives. After Taoist Master Lin Shuqing finished speaking, the cultivators in the palace of Zhonghua Light fell silent. Even the Flying Feather sect cultivators who had been echoing Taoist Master Lin Shuqing didn't say anything. After all, although Taoist Master Lin Shuqing's words were malicious, it was just a friendly match, not a matter of life and death. If they spoke up now and Lu Ping was really schemed to death, there was no guarantee that Xinling wouldn't blame Flying Feather sect. Flying Feather sect was not like Xinling sect. They couldn't withstand Xinling's wrath. Lu Ping wasn't one to be bullied. When he saw Taoist Master Lin Shuqing's tricks, he immediately replied, "Senior Lin, you flatter me. There are many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the cultivation world, and there are many who are stronger than me. Not everyone can be like your sect's Dao Sheng Laozu. That is the true, invincible existence in the North Sea." Lu Ping's words could only insinuate that Xinling's sect had no successor. After all, Dao Shen Laozu had already reached the peak of the cultivation world. Even if others hated him to death, they couldn't do anything to him. But Lu Ping was different. Before he grew up, there were countless ways to kill him. After the battle between Lu Ping and Ouyang Weijian, there were a few other cultivators who came forward to learn from each other. However, in terms of excitement, they weren't as exciting as the battle between Lu Ping and Ouyang Weijian. Most of the people who fought held back and stopped at the right time, which made some of the cultivators who were watching the show feel bored. However, the cultivators in the palace of Zhonghua Light each gained something. These cultivators all had sharp eyes and could often come up with some conclusions from the parts that others had overlooked. Even Lu Ping used his 3 pure eyes from time to time to carefully analyze the process of the cultivators fighting, and he felt that he had gained a lot from it. After the cultivators had finished learning from each other, it was time for Tianling Laozu to come up to the podium and give his speech. This was the main event of the Dharma meeting, and it was also Xinling's way of giving feedback to the cultivators who came to participate in the Dharma meeting. Even though Tianling Laozu only talked about some of his experiences in breaking through to the Dharma stage, and not the detailed process of breaking through to the Dharma stage, there were very few cultivators who had reached the Dharma stage, and Tianling Laozu had just broken through to the Dharma stage. He was still in the most profound stage of understanding about the process of breaking through to the Dharma stage. Therefore, in the eyes of the core forging cultivators, these things became more and more precious. Just as Lu Ping was about to listen attentively, he felt a light touch from behind. When Lu Ping turned his head, he saw second senior sister gesturing to him. Lu Ping was full of doubts. Even though he was unwilling, he had no choice but to leave the palace of Zhonghua Light. Outside the palace, Lu Ping found that not only was second senior sister with him, but all the core forging disciples of the Chonghua house and the 4 core forging disciples of the Xiaoyao house were also here. Lu Ping was stunned. He knew that something big had happened. Sure enough, eldest senior brother Xintian looked at the crowd with a serious face and said, "The demon race has launched an attack on the outer islands of the sect. The elders of the sect have informed me to wait for the Heaven's Spirit Hall and prepare to use the teleportation array to the outer islands to help defend against the demon race's attack." Hearing this, Lu Ping was shocked. He said, "Eldest senior brother, this time the demon race is launching an all-out attack. Or are they only targeting our sect?" Xintian's spiritual master was stunned. He said, "Only targeting our sect? Little junior brother, have you thought of something?" Lu Ping shook his head. He said, "I'm not sure. I just hope that the demon race is not targeting Master's Dharma Manifestation Assembly." Everyone's hearts tightened when they heard that. The Heaven's Spirit Hall was not too far away from the Chonghua Manor. When everyone arrived, there were already 20 to 30 core forging adepts gathered in the hall. The 3 adepts at the front of the hall caused everyone's spirits to rise. At the same time, they felt that something big had probably happened. Seeing the 3 spiritual masters, Lu Ping was also stunned. The premonition in his heart grew stronger. Among the 3, Spiritual Master Guo Xianshan was the leader, while Spiritual Master Liang Xianfeng and Spiritual Master Xianyin were on his side. Among the 7 most famous core forging spiritual masters in Zhenling, there were the 3 spiritual masters and 4 spiritual masters. Apart from Jiang Tianlin, the carefree spiritual master, Lu Tianling, the water spiritual master, Lu Tianling, and a mysterious spiritual master, Chu Xuanqing, the fire spiritual master, who had been guarding Xianqi Island. He was at the forefront of the battle against the demon race. The other 3 spiritual masters were all here. Mountain Spirit Spiritual Master, Guo Xianshan, Wind Spiritual Master, Liang Xianfeng, and Shadow Spiritual Master, Li Xianyi. Seeing that almost everyone had arrived, Spiritual Master Guo Xianshan said in a deep voice, "The demon race's attack is not small. Now, all the small islands in the eastern periphery have fallen into a bitter battle. Senior Sister Tianling's Dharma Manifestation Assembly is currently being held. Many cultivators of the North Sea are gathered on Tianling Mountain. We cannot let the demon race break through any of our islands during this period." Hearing this, the cultivators in the hall frowned. They all realized the seriousness of the problem. At this time, Spiritual Master Liang Xianfeng also said, "Now that the demon race has only attacked our Zhenling clan, I'm afraid they're here for Senior Sister Tianling's Dharma Manifestation Assembly. Apart from the core forging spiritual masters guarding the islands and the necessary ones guarding Tianling Mountain, everyone that can be mobilized is here. Go to the small islands where the battle is the fiercest and help the cultivators stationed there to defend against the demon race's attack." Lu Ping raised his eyebrows. Seeing that everyone had started to walk to the teleportation array outside the hall, he couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Spiritual Master Liang Xianfeng. "Uncle Master, aren't you afraid that the demon race is luring us away?" Spiritual Master Liang Xianfeng glanced at him and said, "The 3 of us are here." Lu Ping was stunned. He chuckled and turned to walk to the teleportation array. Spiritual Master Guo Xianshan looked at Lu Ping's back and said, "This is Senior Sister Tianling's 9th disciple? He's quite a meticulous person to be able to guess that the demon race might sneak into the internal endless sea to attack Tianling Mountain. He's quite bold to ask you directly." Chapter 349. I wonder how many demonic cultivators have infiltrated the inner sea at this time. Have the clans on the outer islands of Tianling Mountain made their move? Perfected Liang Xianfeng asked as he saw Lu Ping and the others leave the Heaven's Spirit Hall. Reverend Guo Xianshan chuckled coldly and said, "Of course they're on the move, and they have no choice but to give it their all. The demonic beast's attack on the outer islands this time is just a cover for the demonic cultivators who have snuck into the inner seas. The purpose of these demonic cultivators is to disrupt Senior Sister Tianling's Dharma Summit and to strike a blow to the morale of our sect's cultivators. As long as they can charge into the summit and kill 2 people, our Zhenling sect's reputation in the North Seas will naturally fall. However, these demonic cultivators can only do so much. Do you really think that a few demonic cultivators can destroy our Zhenling sect now that the Dharma ancestors are fighting each other?" Perfected Liang Xianfeng smiled. "That's true. Let's head outside first. If the clans can't stop the infiltrating demonic cultivators, we'll be the last line of defense for the Dharma Manifestation Conference." As soon as Perfected Liang Xianfeng finished speaking, he turned into a gust of wind and disappeared from the hall. Perfected Guo Xianshan nodded at Perfected Mysterious Een beside him and disappeared into the ground. Even Debao would be shocked if he saw this. This was clearly an earth escape technique, and it was far more skillful than Debao's. Just as Perfected Guo Xianshan entered the ground, Perfected Mysterious Een had already disappeared, leaving behind only an empty hall. Lu Ping arrived at the teleportation array and saw a group of True Spirit Side Hall disciples led by 2 blood condensation immortals. Apart from them, there were also more than 20 inner blood condensation disciples, blood condensation cultivators from Zhenling's subsidiary clans, and rogue cultivators. Seeing Lu Ping arrive, everyone respectfully made way for him in the center of the teleportation array. Lu Ping smiled and nodded at everyone before walking straight to the center of the teleportation array. The teleportation array was activated. At this time, Lu Ping no longer felt dizzy like when he was in the teleportation array. He just used his divine sense to guard his body, and at the same time, he carefully experienced the wonderful process of teleportation. A white light flashed, and 40 to 50 people suddenly appeared on a small island. Before Lu Ping had time to observe the familiar things around him, his ears were already filled with a loud battle cry, and his body was surrounded by violent spiritual energy. Looking at the cultivators who had rushed over with them, the faces of the monastery disciples were flushed red. Their faces were filled with excitement, as if they had just entered a battlefield for the first time. The other blood condensation cultivators, on the other hand, were much calmer. Clearly, they had experience fighting on the battlefield. Lu Ping spread out his divine sense and immediately enveloped more than half of the island. When he found that Taoist Chu Xuanqing was not on Xianqi Island, Lu Ping frowned. Suddenly, he sensed 2 familiar auras. Delighted, Lu Ping flew towards the center of the island. When the blood condensation cultivators on the teleportation array saw Lu Ping leaving, they also turned into rays of light and flew towards the surroundings of Xianqi Island. Under the leadership of 2 immortals, a group of monastery disciples formed into 2 3 talents 5 elements Tao soldier formations and headed towards the northeast and southeast, the 2 most turbulent spiritual energy areas. At the top of the mountain where Taoist Chu Xuanqing had opened his cave abode, Chun Lian had also sensed Lu Ping's arrival. "I didn't expect Junior Brother to come to Xianqi Island to provide support." Chun Lian laughed from afar. Lu Ping also said, "Maybe it's because I'm too familiar with this place, so I was sent here. But why don't I see Uncle Master Chu?" Chun Lian said helplessly, "Uncle Master Chu has a fiery temper. How could he bear to stay on the island? He has already left the island to fight. Instead, he asked me to stay on the island as a firefighter." Lu Ping frowned. "There are only 2 core forging cultivators on the island, you and Uncle Master Chu?" Chun Lian nodded. "How many do you think there are? Our sect and the demon race are in a deadlock on the small islands in the eastern outer sea. From north to south, there are a total of 37 small islands, each of which is guarded by at least 1 core forging enlightened master. Xianqi Island is located in the southernmost area and has always been attacked by the demon race. Furthermore, Xianqi Island is rich, which is why Uncle Master Chu is stationed here all year round. With me, a new core forging cultivator, we can be considered the strongest defensive force among the 46 small islands." Lu Ping nodded and asked, "What's the situation on the island now?" Chun-Lian said seriously. The demon race's attack is very urgent. The island can still be defended, otherwise Uncle Master Chu wouldn't have gone off the island to fight. Now that you and a group of blood condensation cultivators have arrived, the situation should be better. However, the island's protective array has been greatly depleted. Junior Marshall Sister Hu and a few cultivators who are proficient in array formations have been maintaining the array formation in the cave. You can go down and take a look first. I'll go to the place where the battle is the most intense. Who knows, there might be more high-level demon race cultivators later. I'll be busy then. Chun-Lian was about to leave when he suddenly thought of something. He turned around and threw 3 items to Lu Ping. These are the magic treasures I gave you. You'll probably need them later. Lu Ping happily accepted the 3 mystic treasures. They were none other than the landslide and water nether sword that had been enchanted with a treasure seal. The psychic jade pendant that Lu Ping always wore had also been upgraded to the mystic treasure grade. It was made from the 1,000-year frost jade. Lu Ping nodded at Chun-Lian and flew into the cave dwelling. By then, Chun-Lian had already transformed into a ball of fire and was flying towards the east. In the center of the fire, a beancurd-sized silver jade flame flickered incessantly. It was the low-grade mystic class heaven and earth spirit fire, the stone jade fire. Enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing's cave was divided into 2 parts. The back was Enlightened Master Chu's cultivation room, while the front was where the island's protective array disk was. This array disk was twice the size of the Li family's island's protective array disk on Flying Thunder Island. The array disk was also much more complex. There were more than 200 mid-grade spirit stones inlaid on the periphery of the array disk. In the center, there were 5 high-grade spirit stones inlaid in each of the 4 directions. The surface of these spirit stones emitted a dense spiritual light, activating the entire array disk. Together with the array formation props around Xinqi Island, they supported the operation of the island's protective array. At this time, Hu Lily and the other 3 late blood condensation female cultivators were guarding the array disk. From time to time, the spirit stones on the array disk would shatter due to the exhaustion of spiritual energy. At this time, someone would step forward and inlay a new spirit stone, so that the island's protective array would not weaken. Seeing Lu Ping coming, Hu Lily's face lit up. However, with others present, the 2 of them acted more reserved. When the other 3 saw a core-forging realm enlightened master, they all stood up to greet him, but Lu Ping dodged to the side. Only then did the 3 realize that Lu Ping was looking for Hu Lily. They all smiled and hid to the side. Lu Ping looked at the blushing Hu Lily and asked softly, "How's the situation on the island?" Hu Lily frowned and said softly, "The demon race's attack is very fierce. The island's protective array has consumed a lot of spirit stones, but fortunately, the island's protective array is operating normally." "Oh," Lu Ping said, "do you still have enough spirit stones?" Hu Lily thought for a moment and said, "If the demon race doesn't send more troops, or if they send more high-level cultivators, according to the current consumption rate, we should be able to last for 2 days. Moreover, our sect's Tianling Mountain will send more reinforcements." As soon as Hu Lily's voice fell, she heard a loud bang coming from the south side of the island. Then, almost half of the spirit stones inlaid on the south side of the formation plate cracked and shattered. Even 2 of the 5 upper-grade spirit stones in the innermost layer were broken. Hu Lily exclaimed in shock. She quickly exchanged the damaged spirit stones with the other 3 women and said, "It's a core-forging realm demon cultivator." Lu Ping nodded and tossed an interspatial pouch to Hu Lily. Then, he quickly flew towards the south of the island. At this moment, another loud explosion came from the south. The 4 women's cries came from the cave behind them. Lu Ping's divine sense had already locked onto the core-forging realm demon cultivator who was attacking the island's protective array. The island's protective array's light barrier had been broken twice by the enlightened beast cultivator, and the array's rebound force prevented the enlightened beast cultivator from rushing into Xinqi Island. The array quickly recovered, but more than 10 blood condensation realm demon beasts took the opportunity to enter and fight with the island's Jinling cultivators. At this time, the enlightened beast cultivator had already noticed Lu Ping's arrival and stopped attacking the array. Hu Lily, who had just replenished the spirit stones on the array disk, brushed away the damp hair on her forehead and opened the storage pouch Lu Ping handed to her. Immediately, she sucked in a breath of cold air. Inside the pouch were 5,000 mid-grade spirit stones, worth 500,000 spirit stones. When Lu Ping arrived, 3 of the dozen demon beasts that broke into the island had already been killed by the island's cultivators. Another 5 or 6 were trapped, and the remaining 4 or 5 were too strong for the cultivators to control. 2 of them died in a row. Just as the 5 late blood condensation demonic beasts temporarily repelled the cultivators who surrounded them and were about to join forces with the other demonic beasts outside the island to break the island's defensive formation again, a dense killing intent suddenly surged towards them. The suppressive aura of a core forging cultivator instantly suppressed the 5 late blood condensation demonic beasts. Immediately after, a golden flying sword pierced through the air, and 5 bloody lines appeared on the bodies of the 5 demonic beasts. They fell to the ground with a loud thud, and their bodies were split into 2. When the cultivators guarding the island saw Lu Ping's invincible aura, they all cheered loudly. The enlightened beast cultivator outside the island also saw all this, and he immediately let out an angry howl. However, he didn't attack the island's protective array again. Instead, he sent a provocative aura towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping chuckled, and his divine sense turned into a giant hammer and smashed towards the enlightened beast cultivator's divine sense. The enlightened beast cultivator didn't expect Lu Ping's divine sense to be so powerful. He immediately felt a pain in his divine sense, as if he had been hit by a heavy blow. He couldn't help but cry out in pain. By the time the enlightened beast cultivator realized something was wrong, Lu Ping's golden scale sword had already slashed towards his throat. Chapter 350. The island-protecting formation of Xianqi Island was an energy shield formed by the gathering of heaven and earth spiritual qi. It could be broken by external forces from a single point, but it would restore the broken shield in a very short period of time. Of course, this would consume a huge amount of energy from the formation itself. This was why Hu Lily and the other 3 stayed in Taoist Master Chu Xuanqing's cave mansion to constantly replace the spirit stones that contained spiritual power. Of course, this was under the condition that external forces were not enough to completely destroy the island-protecting formation. For example, Lu Ping used 2 minor magical attacks on Flying Thunder Island to break the island-protecting formation of the Li family. That situation was first because the Li family did not have any cultivators to guard the formation, and secondly, it was deliberately done by Lu Ping. Moreover, the power of the island-protecting formation of the Li family on Flying Thunder Island was far inferior to that of Xianqi Island. Lu Ping's divine sense swept around and found that although the island-protecting formation of Xianqi Island was broken by the joint efforts of the demonic beasts from time to time, and a few demonic beasts broke in, they were quickly killed by the cultivators. It did not affect Xianqi Island too much. Most of the cultivators could rely on the protection of the island-protecting formation to use the magic weapons in their hands to resist the attacks of the demonic beasts outside the island. Lu Ping, who was relieved, used the divine sense attack that he had just learned from his teacher's speech and unexpectedly injured the Taoist master outside the island. The golden scale sword took the opportunity to slash the Taoist master's throat. When the demonic cultivator woke up, his face turned pale with fright. He only had time to cast a small protective magical power, but it was pierced by the golden scale sword. A bloody light flashed, and a crisp sound rang out. The golden scale sword was protected by a blood-red magical ring around its neck. The blade of the sword streaked across the magical ring and cut off a large piece of flesh from the demonic cultivator's shoulder. Although the transformed Taoist master was no different from a normal human, being seriously injured by a cultivator of the same level still made this Taoist master burst out with primitive hostility. A long and painful howl rang out, as the Sage Yao cultivator instantly escaped from Lu Ping's attack range. At the same time, a long spear appeared in his hand, which he hurled towards the island's Grand Array formation. The speed of the spear was extremely fast. Before Lu Ping could block it with his golden scale sword, a crisp sound rang out. The spear had already pierced through the island's grand protective array, leaving a large hole of 10 feet in size. The demonic beasts outside burst into a clamor, as if they were cheering for the strength of the Taoist demon cultivator. Several demonic beasts leaped up one after another, and before the island's grand protective array could automatically repair itself, they crashed into the hole. The cultivators on Xianqi Island spontaneously formed 5 simple formations and surrounded the demonic beasts. Suddenly, several red lines appeared on the bodies of the 5 late blood condensation demonic beasts. Under the shocked gazes of the cultivators, the demonic beasts fell to the ground and broke into dozens of pieces. Blood splattered all over the ground. The cultivators on the island looked at Lu Ping excitedly. Among the cultivators present, only a core forging enlightened master like Lu Ping had the ability to instantly kill the late blood condensation demonic beasts with such a strange method. The Seijiao cultivator outside the island looked at Lu Ping with increasingly gloomy eyes. He stretched out his hands and threw another 2 spears towards the grand protective array. This time, Lu Ping was already prepared. The golden scale sword sprinkled out sword light that filled the sky, and it slashed towards the 2 spears. Ding ding dang dang, the sound of metal clashing rang out incessantly. Lu Ping's expression changed. Amidst Lu Ping's swordlight, a spear actually broke through the encirclement and pierced a large hole in the grand protective array. One of the cultivators couldn't dodge in time and could only let out a scream before the spear pierced through his body. He was dead. However, the spear that fell to the ground disappeared, leaving behind a large bloody hole in the cultivator's body. In Lu Ping's divine sense, the spear suddenly exploded into a ball of spiritual energy and quickly disappeared into the heaven and earth. This spear wasn't a magic tool, but a minor divine ability of the Sage Yao cultivator. Lu Ping instantly sensed that something was wrong. With a flash of light, he appeared outside Xianqi Island. The Sage Yao cultivator thrust another 2 spears at him. Lu Ping's golden scale sword only managed to cut down 1 spear, but the other spear pierced through the grand protective array and killed a late blood condensation cultivator. When the attacking demonic beasts outside the island saw that Lu Ping, a human core forging cultivator, had suddenly left the island, they howled. Several more demonic beasts flew into the hole that the spear pierced through and started fighting with the cultivators inside. However, before the demonic beasts could get excited for long, a strange buzzing sound came from afar. A purple cloud flowed over from the center of Xianqi Island, instantly wrapping around a peak blood condensation demonic beast that had just escaped from the cultivator's encirclement. An enraged roar came from the purple cloud, which then turned into a scream. The purple cloud continued to sway, and it looked as if the demonic beast was struggling in its true form. However, as the scream grew softer and softer, the purple cloud also grew calmer. At this moment, the purple cloud suddenly exploded, leaving only a corpse riddled with holes on the ground. The purple cloud that had exploded gathered once again in the sky. At this time, people could clearly see that this purple cloud was actually nearly 1,000 fist-sized purple bees. The swarm of bees flew over and circled above the Xianqi Island cultivators. Only then did the Xianqi Island cultivators notice that among the buzzing of the purple bees, there seemed to be a deep but distant sound of drum beating. Once a demonic beast broke through the island's grand protective array, the sound of the drum would change. The swarm of bees would gather in the sky, forming a rotating array that would envelop one of the demonic beasts. When the swarm of bees exploded and reassembled in the sky, only the demonic beast's corpse was left on the ground. After leaving Xianqi Island, Lu Ping quickly rushed towards the demonic cultivator. At the same time, Lu Ping also understood why enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing left Xianqi Island to fight with the demonic cultivator. Although the Grand Protective Array could withstand the attacks of demonic beasts, it could only protect Blood Condensation Realm cultivators and Blood Condensation Realm demonic beasts. However, for enlightened masters in the Core Forging Realm, the Grand Protective Array might be able to stop them for a while, but enlightened masters in the Core Forging Realm had ways to kill the Blood Condensation Realm cultivators who were protected by the array. Lu Ping could only passively defend against the demonic cultivator's attacks. Even though Lu Ping had 1,000 tricks up his sleeves, the Grand Protective Array had become an obstacle for him. Just as Lu Ping left Xianqi Island, he realized something. This was also a sect's hope for its cultivators. During the blood condensation realm, the sect would protect the cultivators. But once the cultivators entered the core forging realm and became high-grade cultivators, the sect would have to shoulder the responsibility and face the sect head-on instead of hiding behind the array formation to avoid the danger. When the demonic cultivator saw Lu Ping leaving Xianqi Island, his expression changed. He turned around and wanted to retreat. When Lu Ping was protecting his sect's blood condensation realm cultivators in the Grand Protective Array, the demonic cultivator had nothing to fear. But when Lu Ping stood out, the demonic cultivator immediately remembered Lu Ping's sharp sword strike. Seeing him retreat, Lu Ping's face was filled with anger. This person had killed 2 of his sect's disciples in front of him. This made Lu Ping feel ashamed. The cultivator who was pierced by the spear was obviously not able to dodge the demonic cultivator's attack. However, it was obvious that he was very confident in Lu Ping's protection and was a little careless. Although the demonic cultivator's expression was a little anxious, he didn't panic when retreating. But at this moment, he heard Lu Ping's cold snort. The demonic cultivator had a bad premonition. Suddenly, a cold intent came from his side. The demonic cultivator recalled the scene of those late blood condensation demonic beasts being strangely dismembered on Xianqi Island, and a chill ran down his spine. A blood-red ring appeared once again, growing bigger and trapping the demonic cultivator inside. However, that cold intent suddenly disappeared. The Taoist Master Yao was suspicious. The blood-red ring magic treasure was still protecting him, but suddenly discovered that the top of his head darkened. A huge, silver jade-colored seal descended with a loud rumble. The demonic cultivator instantly sensed the huge power contained in the seal. His expression changed dramatically. A huge clamshell suddenly rose up, and the demonic cultivator's upper body suddenly transformed into a huge, ferocious-looking, iron-armed crocodile. It raised both its arms, and the surface of the huge clamshell was suddenly covered with a layer of iron-black halo. Lu Ping knew that the demonic cultivator had fused his protective divine ability with the clamshell-shaped protective treasure. This was a secret technique commonly used by core forging Taoists to greatly enhance their defensive abilities. This was the first time Chen Lian used landslide after it was upgraded to a magic treasure. Although it only condensed one restriction, it made a qualitative leap in the power of landslide. A loud noise resounded, causing the attacks of the demonic beasts that were attacking Xianqi Island in the distance to stagnate. When landslide fell, it brought about a huge wind pressure that compressed the seawater under the demonic cultivator's feet into a huge pit. The demonic cultivator, whose upper body had transformed into a demonic body, stubbornly resisted the pressure of landslide. His entire iron-black body suddenly overflowed with a layer of strange red. However, this was not the end. Ding-ding, 2 crisp sounds rang out. The red bracelet around the demonic cultivator's body was knocked by 2 identical jade bracelets. A cold and hot aura was suddenly channeled into the blood-red bracelet. The blood-red bracelet suddenly trembled with a buzzing sound. The demonic cultivator's expression changed. His Zhen Yuan, under the guidance of the cold and hot aura in the bracelet, suddenly had a feeling of losing control. The red light on the surface of the demonic cultivator's body flourished, unexpectedly pushing back landslide in one fell swoop. Just as he was about to stabilize the blood-red bracelet, he suddenly looked startled. He reached out to touch his neck. Just as the demonic cultivator's hand touched his neck, a faint red line appeared. The demonic cultivator looked at Lu Ping with a look of despair and fear. He opened his mouth and let out a howl. Suddenly, blood burst out of his throat, and his head fell backward. The howl stopped abruptly. When the demonic beasts that were attacking the formation behind him wailed, as if they had received a shocking command, they all sank into the seawater. The demonic birds in the sky also scattered. Lu Ping took the opportunity to throw a little turtle into the seawater. The little turtle's feet were still entangled with 3 small snakes. The cultivators on Xianqi Island behind him had just burst into a burst of cheers when 3 consecutive howls suddenly came from 3 directions several miles away. 3 core forging stage demonic cultivators' aura rushed straight over. Lu Ping's expression changed. This was obviously a trap, waiting for the core forging stage cultivator to fall into it. However, he didn't expect that the demonic cultivator, who was the bait, would die before he could lure Lu Ping into the trap. Lu Ping's heart palpitated not because of the 3 core forging stage demonic cultivators, but because of where Taoist Chu Xuanqing was. Chapter 351. Lu Ping pointed with his finger, and a bloody hole suddenly appeared in the chest of the fallen Taoist Yao. An angry roar came from the distance. "How dare you?" Lu Ping smiled mockingly. The core space of the Taoist Yao had been pierced by the nether water sword. The Taoist Yao's golden core automatically exploded, forming a huge spiritual chi vortex on the surface of the sea. It then quickly evaporated in the air. Only the rich spiritual chi here could prove that there was a core forging Taoist Yao. Lu Ping made a hand seal, and the nether water sword, which was faintly visible in the air, nimbly picked up the Taoist Yao's corpse, and a storage belt fell into Lu Ping's hand. Before Lu Ping had time to check the harvest in the storage belt, a golden feather had already flown towards Lu Ping. At this time, among the 3 Taoist Yao who were rushing over, the one with the highest cultivation had reached the 5th stage of the core forging realm. The other 2 had the same cultivation as the Taoist Yao who had died in Lu Ping's hands. They were both at the 3rd stage of the core forging realm and were stuck at the mid-stage of the core forging realm. Lu Ping's divine sense covered several miles, but did not find the 3 of them. Obviously, this was a trap set up by the 4 Taoist Yao in advance, a trap to attract the Taoist Yao on Xinqi Island and kill him. But how could these Taoist Yao be sure that there would be other Taoist Yao on Xinqi Island? With Chen Lian's current cultivation of the 1st stage of the core forging realm, he was obviously not worthy of their attention. Moreover, there was a powerful figure like Taoist Chu Xuanqing, whose cultivation was almost at the peak of the core forging realm, on Xianqi Island. In a situation where Fa Xiang and Lao Zhu could not make a move, Taoist Chu Xuanqing could be said to be invincible. Why would the demon race dare to set up an ambush near Xianqi Island, knowing that there was such a figure on Xianqi Island? Unless Taoist Chu Xuanqing had been lured away or pinned down. As soon as this thought flashed through Lu Ping's mind, Lu Ping was almost certain that Taoist Master Chu Xuanqing was most likely being held back by the demon clan cultivators, or even trapped. Otherwise, with Taoist Master Chu Xuanqing's shrewdness, no matter how irascible he would definitely not abandon Xianqi Island for a small loss. If these 4 core forging stage cultivators had swarmed in together, Xianqi Island, which had lost the protection of perfected Jinling Chu Xuanqing, would definitely not be able to defend itself. However, these 4 people had too big of an appetite. Obviously, they wanted to attract a few core forging stage perfected masters to kill them. In the end, they encountered an exception, Lu Ping. They went for wool and came home shorn. Since the 3 of them had appeared together, it was obvious that they had given up on their previous plan. Xianqi Island was bound to fall under the siege of 3 core forging enlightened masters. At the moment, Xianqi Island must be protected. Lu Ping made a prompt decision. A golden sound-transmitting magic sword flew out of his hand and flew towards Xianqi Island. Lu Ping's face was solemn. The netherwater sword fell into the waves of the sea and disappeared. The golden scale sword in Lu Ping's hand suddenly turned into a golden light that no one could look at. When the golden light dissipated, the golden scale sword had disappeared. A low and deep rumble sounded between heaven and earth, as if it was resonating with everything between heaven and earth. Then, a golden light that seemed to be endowed with divine power flashed in the sky. In the distance, a figure in green was originally flying over. After seeing the golden light, he abruptly stopped and exclaimed, "The divine power of heaven and earth, the great divine swordsmanship, not good." What was a great divine swordsmanship? A magic that could draw the infinite power of heaven and earth was a great divine swordsmanship. The enlightened demon cultivator who had just appeared wanted to retrieve the feather-like magic treasure, but it was too late. The feather was like a moth thrown into the fire, subdued by the divine power of heaven and earth. With a flash of golden light, the feather was actually split in two by Lu Ping's long-awaited attack. You, the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator, had just spoken when his face suddenly turned red and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. This was the demon cultivator with the highest cultivation, the fifth stage of the core forging realm. Lu Ping took the initiative, and the golden scale sword changed again. The golden sword light suddenly turned into a huge sword, taking the opportunity to slash at the head of the demon cultivator who had stopped to heal his internal injuries. In the distance, two more third-stage enlightened demon cultivators appeared. Lu Ping had no time to think and could only end the battle quickly. Although Lu Ping knew that he couldn't kill a fifth-stage core forging realm cultivator in a short period of time, he had to at least reduce his combat power to the minimum. Otherwise, if he fell into a siege, Lu Ping wouldn't be able to get away with it. True Essence 1 Chi Sword. After witnessing Lu Ping's great divine swordsmanship, the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator was no longer surprised by this kind of great divine swordsmanship. A sharp, all-shaped magic treasure was cast in the air by the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator. A blue lightning suddenly burst out from the all-shaped magic treasure and bombarded the huge body of the True Essence 1 Chi Sword. The body of the sword shattered with a loud bang. Lu Ping swept his sleeves, and the broken sword light suddenly turned into a torrent of swordsmanship, rushing towards the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator again. After the bombardment of the lightning magic treasure, the power of the torrent of swordsmanship was greatly reduced. However, the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator was surprised that Lu Ping was able to display a great divine swordsmanship in such a hurry. The great divine swordsmanship demon cultivator quickly took out a golden talisman from his sleeve. On the surface of the talisman, there were various twisted and seemingly natural lines that outlined a complex and incomparably clear, solid character. The talisman slowly rose up. Above the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator's head, the huge, solid character suddenly came to life. A golden curtain of light fell down, firmly protecting the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator. The torrent of swordsmanship demon cultivator rushed up, but it was as if it had hit a reef on the shore. However, under the impact of Lu Ping's great divine swordsmanship demon cultivator, the curtain of light on the golden talisman became faint. The green-robed enlightened demon cultivator was not to be outdone. As he used the golden talisman to protect himself, the cone-shaped magic treasure in the sky once again shot out a blue lightning bolt toward Lu Ping's head. Lu Ping did not even raise his head. He formed a seal and shouted in the sky, "Fall!" It was also a blue lightning bolt. However, it was different from the explosion of the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator's blue lightning bolt. This lightning bolt was clearly much quieter. However, when the two lightning bolts collided, they were silently annihilated in the sky. At that moment, the other two enlightened demon cultivators rushed over. The enlightened demon cultivator on the left had just raised a golden trident magic treasure when his expression suddenly changed. He was about to attack Lu Ping with the magic treasure in front of him. With a crisp sound, the enlightened demon cultivator broke out in a cold sweat. A magic treasure had actually sneaked within 30 feet of him before he could vaguely detect it. If he had not blocked it in time, his head would have been separated from his body. Due to the threat of the Netherwater Sword, the enlightened demon cultivator did not dare to attack Lu Ping with all his strength. At the same time, before the enlightened demon cultivator on the right arrived, 3 huge waterspouts suddenly rose from the sea. The 3 waterspouts formed a triangular shape and firmly trapped the enlightened demon cultivator in the middle. At this moment, 6 colors of gold, blue, yellow, red, cyan, and white suddenly appeared in the sky. Under the protection of the golden talisman, the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator was horrified. The colors turned into 6 kinds of small magical powers and spells of different attributes and attacked the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator. The green-robed enlightened demon cultivator only had time to shoot out a blue light from his flying all-magic treasure to offset the water thunder again. At the same time, he blocked the small golden sword, and the remaining 5 spells smashed toward the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator wrapped in the golden talisman. Under the full attack of Lu Ping's 7 treasures thunder calabash, the golden color on the surface of the golden talisman became fainter and fainter and finally broke. However, Lu Ping did not let him off. The golden scale sword that had been brewing for a long time once again made a clear sound in the air that seemed to shake the whole world. The green-robed enlightened demon cultivator's complexion changed greatly. The scene of Lu Ping cutting off his flying feather magic treasure was still vivid in his mind. At this time, he was already tortured by Lu Ping's continuous powerful attacks and endless methods. Fear grew in his heart. Ignoring his companions who came to support him on both sides, he jumped and retreated. However, it was still too late. The golden scale sword pierced through the air. The green-robed enlightened demon cultivator used his flying all-magic treasure to block in front of him. This was a psychic magic treasure. With a loud dang sound, the golden scale sword unexpectedly flew back. The green-robed enlightened demon cultivator was stunned. How could this be? Could it be that this person was already strong on the outside but weak on the inside? The green-robed enlightened demon cultivator was secretly happy. I was almost deceived by him. Presumably, this series of attacks has exhausted his true essence. After all, this person's cultivation is only at the 3rd level of core forging. However, without waiting for him to think too much, the sea under his feet suddenly began to boil like boiling water. The green-robed enlightened demon cultivator secretly cursed. Suddenly, thousands of water swords condensed from seawater shot out from the sea. The green-robed enlightened demon cultivator tried to defend, but he could only smash the hundreds of water swords in front of him, while the water swords behind him drowned him. On the left side, the cultivator who was being tortured by the elusive nether water swords saw the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator fall, and his face turned pale. He placed a transparent white umbrella over his head, no longer caring about the attack of the nether water swords, and turned to escape into the deep sea. On the other side, as the waterspout was finally dispersed, a huge amount of seawater sprinkled down from the sky. A wet and battered figure had just appeared when he was startled by the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator, who had turned into a hedgehog and turned to flee. Lu Ping took back the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator's storage magic treasure. The psychic flying all-magic treasure had already been destroyed by Lu Ping's Sea of 100 Rivers sword art, which made Lu Ping secretly feel pity. A green light flashed, and a teenager appeared next to Lu Ping, saying, "I find that you are becoming more and more powerful." Lu Ping smiled indifferently, but he didn't expect that he would spit out a mouthful of blood. Previously, he fought with a demon cultivator of the same level. Then he stopped 2 demon cultivators of the same level and killed a 5th-stage core forging realm cultivator. Lu Ping had used almost all of his means except for his life origin magic treasure. He had used 2 great magical powers and several small magical powers. The true essence in his body had long been exhausted. Fortunately, the 2 demon cultivators had been frightened by Lu Ping's method of killing the green-robed enlightened demon cultivator. Otherwise, with Lu Ping's strength to kill a 5th-stage core forging realm cultivator, how could he let them leave so easily? Looking at the young man in front of him, Lu Ping sighed helplessly and said, "If you had helped me, even if you had only helped me restrain one of them, I wouldn't have ended up like this." Chapter 352. The young man in front of Lu Ping was none other than the wood phoenix, Guan Yu. Guan Yu smiled and said, "If your life is in danger, I will naturally lend a hand. However, I am also a member of the monster clan, so I will not participate in a battle." Lu Ping swallowed 2 core forging realm medicinal pellets he concocted to replenish his true yuan, temporarily suppressing the injuries caused by the depletion of his true yuan. He asked, "How is little Qin? She has been in closed-door cultivation for a long time, and you've been watching over her. Do you know when she will break through to the core forging realm?" Lu Ping very much hoped that he had a few more helpers. Luan Yu saw that although Lu Ping's face was pale, he was full of energy. It was obvious that his injuries were not serious, but his qi had been greatly depleted. Luan Yu smiled and said, "Not bad. Qin has been consolidating her foundation. This time, it seems that Master has passed on a lot of things to Qin. Qin clearly wants to study all the knowledge of the Fire Phoenix clan before breaking through to the core forging stage. This way, although she will break through later, she will accumulate enough experience. After breaking through to the core forging stage, the inheritance of the Fire Phoenix clan will be open to a higher degree, and her future achievements will be greater." After a while, Lu Ping recovered some qi and returned to Xianqi Island. On Xianqi Island, Chunlian looked at the returning Lu Ping with a solemn expression and asked, "Is the situation really that serious?" Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, "I don't wish for it to be so, but the monster clan's attacks have clearly stopped. However, there is still no news from Martial Uncle Chu, so my guess is 80 to 90% correct." Chunlian nodded and said, "I have already sent some cultivators back to Tianling Mountain to report the situation here to the sect. However, this time, the monster clan is very aggressive and they are only targeting Zhenling. It is said that some of the monster clan have already infiltrated the inner sea. Under the circumstances, there is no way for us to send reinforcements." Lu Ping had already expected this. He said, "Martial Uncle Chu's cultivation is extremely high. Without Fa Xiang Laozu's help, it is difficult for cultivators of the same level to stop him. This time, he must have fallen into the monster clan's trap and is trapped in one place. For the time being, he should not be in danger of dying. Otherwise, it would not have been the few that came to attack Xianqi Island." Chunlian thought for a moment and said, "You are right. Moreover, the monster clan trapping Martial Uncle Chu probably does not have a very high cultivation. In the absence of Fa Xiang Laozu, late core forging enlightened masters are the highest level of combat power. They are generally under the surveillance of both humans and demons." Currently, the late core forging realm monster clan in the Northern Alliance has not changed much. Therefore, the enemy can only rely on early and mid-core forging realm monster clan to set up a large formation to trap Martial Uncle Chu. While the two were discussing, Hu Lily leisurely walked over from afar. When Chunlian saw Hu Lily, he deliberately said, "When did Junior Martial Sister who trained such a powerful group of Dao soldiers? Your demonic bee Dao soldiers killed 7 to 8 late blood condensation realm demonic beasts, and more than a dozen other demonic beasts." Hu Lily smiled at Lu Ping and said, "Senior Martial Brother Chun, what do you think of these Dao soldiers?" Chunlian did not expect Hu Lily to have such a question. He did not know how to answer. Lu Ping smiled and said, "These Dao soldiers are still far from being able to challenge core forging realm cultivators. However, even if they can fight against core forging realm demonic beasts, I would still be reluctant. These are all amethyst bees. I still need them to brew honey for me, especially the amethyst royal jelly. That is a treasure that even Fa Xiang Laozu covets." Chunlian did not expect Hu Lily's Dao soldiers to have such a background. He was shocked and said, "These are amethyst bees? You are such a prodigal. Using amethyst bees as Dao soldiers to kill? I'm afraid you are the only one in the cultivation world who can do this." Hu Lily looked at Lu Ping with a hint of surprise and pride. Chunlian could not bear to see the two of them flirt in front of him. He was about to find an excuse to leave when he saw Lu Ping's expression change. "How is Xianqi Island's protective formation? Do we have enough spirit stones?" Hu Lily's expression turned serious. "The formation plate is well preserved, and there are enough spirit stones." "Why?" Lu Ping pondered for a moment and said, "My spirit pets seem to have found the location where Martial Uncle Chu is trapped. It is 100 miles northeast. I need to go and take a look. If there are any reinforcements from the sect, I will ask them to go over." Seeing that Chunlian was about to speak, Lu Ping continued, "Senior Apprentice Brother Chun, you should stay on the island for now. 2 of the Yao cultivators I fought just now have retreated. The island needs a core forging cultivator. Otherwise, if the Yao cultivators cooperate with the Yao beast to attack, Xianqi Island will be in danger." Chunlian hesitated for a moment and said, "That is the only way. My cultivation is not good enough, and I can't help much. However, junior apprentice brother, you have been fighting many battles and have consumed a lot of your true essence. Don't force your hand unless it is absolutely necessary. I believe that with Martial Uncle Chu's strength, he will be able to hold out until reinforcements arrive. Hearing Chan Lian's words, Hu Lily's eyes were filled with worry. Lu Ping smiled at her and said to Chen Lian, Senior apprentice brother, don't worry. I know what to do. A few miles away from Xianqi Island, a wave of seawater suddenly flowed upwards and formed a person. Lu Ping looked around and saw that the sea was empty and silent. After returning to Jinling, Lu Ping had listened to his master's lectures several times. Combined with his experiences in the past few years, his cultivation and realm had once again advanced by leaps and bounds. He was even more proficient in using the water evasion technique. Not only that, when Lu Ping killed the green-robed Taoist, he used a minor technique to trap one of the Taoist cultivators. It was the technique that made Tianling, Laozu, famous when he was still at the core forging stage. Water tornado. A huge turtle suddenly floated up from the water. Lu Ping stepped on the surface of the sea as if it was flat ground. He walked onto the turtle's back and asked, Where did Bai and the others go? The turtle suddenly opened its mouth and said, Huangli Island. Lu Ping helplessly slapped his forehead and said, Of course I would think of those three as troublesome fellows. But Dagawei, you need to practice your speech. In the future, when you transform into a human, your mouth will reveal your demonic origins. Lu Ping sat cross-legged on Lu Dagawei's back and patted the turtle's shell, saying, Let's go. We'll go to the place you found first. Lu Ping continued to sit cross-legged on the turtle's back and continued to recover his inner yuan. Lu Dagawei turned into a huge water mark on the surface of the sea and quickly flew towards the northeast. Hundreds of miles away from Xianqi Island, there was a cloud of fog that covered an area of a few miles. A ball of red light was faintly discernible within the fog, constantly darting around. Every time the red light stopped within the fog, there would be a thunderous roar from the depths of the fog. Chu Xuanqing, you won't be able to escape this time. I secretly transferred 7 or 8 core Forging Realm clansmen from various battlefields to set up this black frost fog formation. I even paid the price of Chief Fu Li's death to trap you in the formation. I think you'd better stop struggling. Now that Xianqi Island has already been conquered by the Demon Clan, even if you go back, you'll become a laughing stock in the North Sea cultivation world. Why don't you join the Demon Clan? You'll also be a powerful chief, and when you advance to the Dharma realm, you'll be a demon king. Bullshit. An explosive roar shook the entire cloud of fog. The red light suddenly flourished, followed by another roar accompanied by a few exclamations. The Great Formation shook even more violently. After a while, the Great Formation finally stabilized, and the red light quieted down again. The previous voice sounded again, but this time, there was a hint of jealousy and hatred in the voice. I didn't expect you, Chu Xuanqing, to have reached this stage. You must have achieved the gold core and reached the peak of the core forging stage, right? I didn't expect you, Jinling, to reach this stage after Jiang Tianlin and Lu Tianling. No wonder even the Demon Clan views you as an enemy like Xianling sect, even more so than Xianling sect. Humph. Chu Xuanqing responded with a cold snort and a series of explosions. Thanks to my ample preparation, I managed this formation and gathered the strength of 6 middle-stage core forging stage and 6 early-stage core forging stage cultivators. Otherwise, you really would have escaped by surprise. The previous voice continued with a hint of pride. 2 miles away from the thick fog, Lu Ping landed behind a reef. 2 huge stone slabs tightly covered Lu Ping's body. These 2 stone slabs were obtained by Lu Ping in the Land of 100 Flowers in the perished Secret Realm. They were very effective in blocking the detection of cultivators' divine sense and divine sense. Lu Ping wanted to give these 2 stone slabs to Chen Lian to see if he could refine a magic tool to cover his body, but he didn't have the time. Lu Ping stared fixedly at the mist in front of him, his eyes flashing with a green light. The scene in the mist array formation gradually became clearer to him, and at the same time, The structure of the array formation also became clearer. Lu Ping ran the true essence in his body once. With the help of elixirs, he only recovered a third of it after half a day. In this case, if he forced his way into the formation, he would obviously be in danger. It should be known that more than half of the Demon Clan cultivators in the formation had cultivation above Lu Ping. However, Chu Xuanqing, who was in the formation, looked very bad. The explosion just now was almost an all-out attack from Chu Xuanqing. After being blocked by the Demon Clan cultivators, Chu Xuanqing's true essence was obviously greatly consumed. His attack on the formation was no longer as powerful as before. Lu Ping's only advantage was the element of surprise. At this time, all the cultivators in the formation were focused on the besieged Chu Xuanqing. This formation did not have much external defense. Presumably, the 4 core Forging Realm Demon Clan cultivators who attacked Xianqi Island previously did not expect Jinling to find this place in such a short time. At this moment, the whole formation suddenly shook again, and the previous voice sounded again, Chu Xuanqing. Since you are so stubborn, we have nothing to say. We can only kill you first and make you, Jinling, lose face and lose his soul. The whole fog suddenly shrank and became thicker. However, in Lu Ping's 3 pure true eyes, the network of the formation became clearer. Lu Ping turned his hand, and the golden scale sword appeared in his hand. The surface suddenly flashed with golden light again. Chapter 353. The entire black frost mist congealing formation kept shrinking, and the temperature of the sea within a few miles suddenly dropped. Icicles were rising from the seawater below the formation. Apparently, this area of seawater was going to be frozen into ice in a moment. The red light in the formation gradually flickered and shrank under the attack of the frost fog, and was no longer as ostentatious and explosive as before. The figures of the 13 demonic cultivators in the formation gradually appeared. One of them stood in the eye of the formation like a stabilizing force, while the other 12 occupied their respective positions. Each of them had a formation plate a few feet in size under their feet. The 13 formation plates stood in the air, swallowing and spitting out several rays of white light from each other, connecting with the surrounding formation plates. At the same time, under the control of the demonic cultivators above the formation plates, they flew slowly. The net of white light became tighter and tighter, surrounding perfected Chu Xuanqing and making him unable to move. The leader of the demonic cultivators was dressed like a human scholar, and there was a smug smile on his face. The capture and death of Chu Xuanqing was a huge blow to Jinling and even the human race of the North Sea. After all, Chu Xuanqing could be said to represent the highest combat power in the North Sea cultivation world under the Dharma power Laozu. His death at his hands was tantamount to a bolt from the blue for the human cultivators, but for the demonic cultivators, it could boost their morale. In contrast, the person who thought of sending a cultivator to infiltrate Jinling to destroy the Dharma characteristics gathering was probably regretting it. That was a suicide mission. Assassinating a cultivator participating in the Dharma characteristics gathering in Jinling's base camp. So what if they succeeded? Don't forget, although the Dharma power Laozu could not make a move, it did not mean that Sky Spirit Laozu could not make a move. It was a celebration held for her, and no one would say anything. Just as the demonic cultivator was looking forward to the great achievement he was about to make, the sound of a sword suddenly resounded through the world. The demonic cultivator looked surprised and shouted, "Who is it? Come out!" Along with his shout, an invisible ripple that seemed to cause the air to fluctuate spread out in all directions with him as the center. Divine will manifestation. It was actually divine will manifestation. Furthermore, this person's spiritual sense had already left the golden core. This meant that this person's cultivation was at least at the core forging stage 9. At this time, Lu Ping had no time to think about these things. Under his full suppression, the golden scale sword was finally saturated with Zhen Yuan. Even the 2 stone slabs could no longer suppress the Zhen Yuan fluctuations of the golden scale sword. At this time, Lu Ping couldn't care less. The golden scale sword pierced through the air and slashed towards a beast cultivator at the early stage of the core forging realm. Be careful. It's a swordsmanship divine ability. The perfected demonic cultivator in the lead was currently suppressing perfected Chu Xuanqing with all his might. He had no time to care about anything else and could only remind loudly. The demonic cultivator who was being attacked was not too concerned at first, but when he heard the words of the perfected cultivator, he was shocked. He immediately raised his hands, and the white light emitted from the formation plate under his feet, along with a magic weapon, the great ring saber, slashed towards the golden light of the golden scale sword that pierced through the air. With a crisp sound, the magic weapon of the demonic cultivator, the great ring saber, was cut off by Lu Ping's golden scale sword. However, the layer of white light attached to the great ring saber finally blocked Lu Ping's Sea of All Rivers sword art, and the white light was annihilated in the air as the golden scale sword retreated. The operation of the entire formation seemed to be stagnant as the cultivator pulled out the white light from the formation, but then it began to operate normally. However, Lu Ping's attack naturally wouldn't stop there. At the moment when the golden scale sword was blocked, a faint blue lightning had already struck down. The demonic cultivator who lost the great ring saber threw a colorful stone into the sky. The stone exploded in the sky, and a colorful cloud rose up, colliding with the thunder of water. Although the thunder pierced through the cloud, its power was mostly consumed. Before it could fall on the demonic cultivator activated his protective aura to deflect the remaining lightning to other places. However, immediately after that, a silver seal with a radius of several 10 feet rushed straight towards the demonic cultivator in the formation. This time, Lu Ping did not cast landslide in the air, but charged forward. The demonic cultivator had no choice but to rely on the power of the formation plate under his feet to turn the white light into a flickering light shield in front of him, affecting the operation of the entire formation again. Lu Ping attacked 3 times in a row. Although he didn't break the formation, it greatly affected the operation of the formation. Chu Xuanqing, who was trapped in the formation, was very keen. He immediately noticed that the operation of the formation began to become obscure. He guessed that someone had come to help. The silent red light suddenly jumped, and a loud noise came from the formation again. The entire formation suddenly trembled. The formation plate under the feet of the 13 spiritual masters kept moving up and down, and the white light emitted from the formation plate also appeared intermittent. The leader of the demonic cultivator who presided over the formation was about to use his magical power to kill Lu Ping, the troublemaker. He had already seen that Lu Ping was only at the 3rd level of the core forging realm, but his strength was unusually tyrannical. Although the cultivation of the demonic cultivator who had just been attacked was the lowest among them, he was also at the 2nd level of the core forging realm. However, he was blocked by Lu Ping's attack twice with the power of the formation. However, just when the demonic cultivator was about to make a move, Chu Xuanqing exploded again. The entire formation was unstable because of the interference of Lu Ping. The power of Chu Xuanqing's explosion was much greater than that of Lu Ping. The demonic cultivator had no choice but to stop and put all his energy into suppressing Chu Xuanqing. When Lu Ping saw that the demonic cultivator in the late stage of the core forging realm was about to attack him, his heart skipped a beat. He immediately wanted to turn around and escape. He was not confident that he could withstand the attack of a late-stage core forging realm master, not to mention that this person was obviously a peak core forging realm master like Chu Xuanqing and Liang Xianfeng. At this moment, enlightened master Chu Xuanqing's sudden burst of power let Lu Ping know that his sneak attack had played a role in restraining enlightened master Chu Xuanqing. Lu Ping made up his mind. Ignoring the large consumption of true yuan in his body, he pointed his finger and another thunder of Kue water fell down. This time, although the thunder of Kue water might not be as powerful as a sword skill, it was the fastest and sharpest. Moreover, it consumed the least true yuan in Lu Ping's body. However, this was a small magical power after all. The cultivator who had been repeatedly attacked by Lu Ping did not dare to use the power of the formation plate under his feet. He could only use a magic weapon to block the falling lightning. However, when the cultivator resisted the lightning with all his strength, a sword shadow suddenly flashed near the formation plate under the cultivator's feet. Clang! With a sound, the formation plate had been broken by 1/3, and the white light in the entire formation suddenly weakened. The cultivator who had just resisted the lightning was shocked. He no longer cared about the Zhen Yuan backlash brought by the attack of the lightning, nor did he think about where such a strange attack came from. All the spiritual power in his body surged into the formation plate. At the same time, the magic weapon in his hand had already hit towards Lu Ping, intending to restrain Lu Ping's attack. However, to the cultivator's despair, there was a sudden pain under his feet. A blood-stained red flying sword suddenly appeared through his feet. The formation plate was once again destroyed by 1/3. The flying sword retreated, and the sword body shook. The blood beads on it slid down, and it suddenly disappeared. At this moment, a roar suddenly shook the heaven and earth. Break. It was like a volcano covered with ice and snow. When the magma of the volcano spewed out, the snow on the top of the mountain could only turn into water and gas. This was definitely a great magical power, and it was a great magical power cast by a peak core forging cultivator with all his strength. The formation plate under the feet of the Beastkin cultivator, who had been attacked by Lu Ping, was the first to break. The Beastkin cultivator spat out a mouthful of blood. Previously, under the attack of Lu Ping, this cultivator was already seriously injured. Now that the formation was broken, he suffered a backlash. Looking at the golden light in the blood that he spat out, it was obvious that the backlash had hurt his foundation. If there was no fortuitous encounter in this life, there was no hope for him to advance to the middle stage of core forging. The shattering of this formation plate seemed to be just the beginning. Immediately after, the second shattering sound sounded, and the third was not to be outdone. The 13 formation plates shattered one by one like a barrage of cannons. The black frost mist condensing array collapsed in the angry howl of the leading Beastkin cultivator. A huge fireball, like a ferocious lion that had smashed its cage, soared into the sky from the shattered white light. A mid-stage core forging realm demon cultivator next to him took out a psychic magic treasure, intending to attack. Suddenly, a huge flaming hand stretched out from the fireball and grabbed the psychic magic treasure. Chi white smoke rose, and the psychic magic treasure melted into liquid in the hand, sprinkling from the giant hand onto the sea surface, stirring up a large amount of white mist. The middle stage core forging beast cultivator looked incredulous. His natal magic weapon was destroyed, and a mouthful of blood flowed down the corner of his mouth. The fiery giant hand turned over and slapped, and a middle-stage core forging beast cultivator died. The other beastkin cultivators were shocked and retreated to the side of the leading beastkin cultivator. At this time, the leading beastkin cultivator did not look at Taoist Chu Xuanqing, who broke out of the array. His pair of vulture-like eyes stared closely at the young man on the back of a fleeing turtle in the distance. The Taoist Chu Xuanqing swept a magic weapon in his hand toward the sea in anger. Suddenly, countless crystal ice cones, ice blades, and ice swords drilled out from the sea, flying toward Lu Ping, who was sitting on De Gui's back. At this time, Taoist Chu Xuanqing had just broken out of the array and had not figured out what was going on. Obviously, it was too late to stop the attack of the leading beastkin cultivator. Seeing that Lu Ping, whose true essence was exhausted, could no longer resist this attack, he saw Lu Dagui, who was swimming quickly with Lu Ping, suddenly trembled, overturning Lu Ping on his back into the air, and plunged into the sea and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the ice blades and ice swords pierced Lu Ping, who was flying in the air and unable to resist, into a hedgehog. The face of the Taoist Chu Xuanqing changed, but he saw that the pierced Lu Ping suddenly turned into a mass of seawater and sprinkled on the sea. See deception art. Under the anger of the leading beastkin cultivator, he was deceived by a technique that could not be hidden from him. When the cultivator was about to attack again, the huge fireball flying in the sky suddenly turned into a flaming man. Taoist Chu Xuanqing clapped his hands, and the sky full of fire rained down on everyone. There was no time to attack. Chapter 354. The leading demonic cultivator stomped his feet, and the seawater below suddenly turned into a huge water shield, covering everyone inside. Although Chu Xuanqing's rain of fire was powerful, it was completely blocked by this water shield. After the rain of fire, the water shield disappeared into the sea. There was no trace of Chu Xuanqing in the sky. The leading demonic cultivator reacted and shouted angrily, "We were tricked by that Chu Xuanqing." That Chu Xuanqing was trapped in the formation for half a day. He used several kinds of magical powers to break through the formation. I'm afraid the true essence in his body is already exhausted. The leading monster cultivator chased after Chu Xuanqing. If he let Chu Xuanqing escape this time, his plan of mobilizing more than a dozen core forging stage cultivators from various battlefields in the North Sea and paying such a price would be considered a failure on the verge of success. Moreover, because of this, he would lose a mid-core forging stage cultivator and an early core forging stage cultivator. After returning, it was not impossible for him to be questioned by the Monster King. He was naturally unwilling. Naturally, he was extremely unwilling. There were only 11 perfected masters left behind. One of them was seriously injured by Lu Ping's repeated attacks. He left one to guard him, and the other 10 perfected masters followed him and flew in the direction Chu Xuanqing left. At this time, on the sea surface a few miles away, a turtle with a broken shell on its back suddenly floated up. On the turtle's back was a young man who was completely soaked and weak. This man and turtle were Lu Ping and Lu Dagui. Although the leading demonic cultivator's attack was not aimed at Lu Dagui, the killing intent of a late-stage core forging cultivator was not something a turtle demon who had just stepped into the late blood condensation realm could withstand. Although Lu Dagui used a secret technique to escape several miles away with the help of Lu Ping's last trace of true essence, the price was extremely heavy. Lu Ping had almost no true essence left in his body, and Lu Dagui's turtle shell was broken and he was unconscious on the sea surface. As soon as Lu Ping put Lu Dagui into the spirit beast bag, his divine sense shook. Then, a red light streaked across the sky. Seeing Lu Ping on the sea surface, a giant hand stretched out from the red light and grabbed Lu Ping. Lu Ping did not resist and let the giant hand lift him in the air. In fact, even if he resisted now, there was not a trace of true essence in his body. "Kid, you're quite courageous, very good." The heroic voice was naturally perfected Master Chu Xuanqing. Lu Ping said weakly, "Martial uncle, you flatter me. I almost died." Perfected Master Chu Xuanqing laughed and said, "Martial uncle, are those demons still behind us?" Lu Ping looked behind him. Enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing's escape technique didn't slow down at all. He frowned and said, "Martial uncle, are the monsters still behind us?" "Damn it," perfected Master Chu Xuanqing cursed. "They probably saw that both of us have exhausted our true essence and wanted to catch up to take advantage of us. This time, I suffered such a big loss, I must get back at them." Lu Ping was stunned by perfected Master Chu Xuanqing's words and did not reply for a while. At this moment, perfected Master Chu Xuanqing suddenly chuckled and said, "This time, Imo Wei, that bastard, did not take advantage of us. Not to mention that one of the demons is dead and one is crippled. Even the 13 array discs of the Black Frost Mist Condensing Array are worth a lot." Without waiting for Lu Ping to speak, perfected Master Chu Xuanqing said again, "Kid, you came from Xinchi Island? How is the island? It couldn't have been conquered, right? Based on my understanding of this squid demon, Imo Wei, after luring me out, there's an 80% chance that he still has a backup plan. This time, I've fallen into his trap. I've lost all my faith in the North Sea cultivation world." After saying that, he even sighed twice. Lu Ping was a little amused, but he did not dare to be presumptuous. After all, this Uncle Master was a figure who was as famous as his teacher, so he smiled weakly and said, "Xinchi Island is still there. I guess the other cultivators of our sect will arrive soon." "What?" perfected Master Chu Xuanqing exclaimed, and the big hand that grabbed Lu Ping suddenly shook, causing Lu Ping to be very worried in midair, afraid that this temperamental Uncle Master would throw him into the sea in excitement. "What's going on? Tell me quickly." But before Lu Ping could open his mouth, a wave of spiritual energy suddenly came from the sea a few miles behind him, They caught up quite quickly. If not for the old man's lack of true essence, we might have to fight with them this time. It won't be so easy to trap the old man again, but now we are like tigers in a flatland. I hope these people won't catch up to us when we return to Xianqi Island. As soon as perfected Master Chu Xuanqing's voice fell, an angry roar came from behind. Chu Xuanqing, where can you escape to today? Today, I'll make sure you die. When Lu Ping turned to look, he saw an ink-colored brilliance that seemed to be using the white clouds in the sky as a piece of paper, fiercely writing the word one. And the distance between the two of them was getting closer and closer. This guy seems to be really anxious. In order to catch up to the old man, he even used his flying ability. This is not good. The true essence in the old man's body is exhausted. Damn it. Lu Ping didn't know who Enlightened Master Chu was cursing, but when he heard Enlightened Master Chu said that his Zhen Yuan was depleted, he let Enlightened Master Mo Wei catch up to him. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He believed Enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing also had medicinal pellets that could restore Zhen Yuan. However, these medicinal pellets required time to digest, and it was obviously too late for Enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing. Perfected Master Chu, who was flying quickly, was thinking of a way to get rid of the pursuit of the demon cultivator behind him, but he saw Lu Ping suddenly look down at his storage magic tool, rummaging for something. When he raised his head, his hand was already holding something that was almost the size of a baby's head. This is a longevity peach? Perfected Master Chu looked at Lu Ping with a strange expression. Clearly, he also didn't think that Lu Ping would take out this thing at a time like this. Spirit Demon Peach, to recover true essence, Lu Ping said in a somewhat bad mood, momentarily forgetting that the person in front of him was Zhenling's highly respected senior cultivator, his uncle master. This is a Spirit Demon Peach? Perfected Master Chu first looked at the longevity peach in disbelief, then looked at Lu Ping, as if he didn't believe it. But before Lu Ping could say anything, a hand had already taken the longevity peach. Once the longevity peach was in his hand, Perfected Master Chu immediately realized its authenticity and happily said, "It really is a spirit demon peach." With that said, he opened his mouth and sucked. The juice and flesh of the entire peach were directly sucked into Perfected Master Chu's mouth under Lu Ping's dumbfounded gaze, leaving only the peach pit and the peel. Perfected Master Chu smacked his lips and said, "It's a pity to eat it like this." Lu Ping rolled his eyes. This was a spirit demon peach, and if it was used to refine pills, it could be used to refine a cauldron of Dharma rejuvenation pills. Of course it was a pity to eat it like this, but why didn't Perfected Master Chu say it before eating it? He had already eaten it, and only said it was a pity. No matter how he looked at it, Lu Ping felt like he was going crazy. Perfected Master Chu casually threw the things away, but Lu Ping stretched out his hand and called back the pit of the peach. Perfected Master Chu looked at Lu Ping with extreme disdain, then silently activated his technique. Immediately, he was overjoyed and said, "It really is a good item. I have recovered a third of my true essence. Let's see how this cuttlefish spirit can catch up to the old man with that." Perfected Master Chu actually activated his flying technique. In a moment, Xianqi Island was already in sight. However, at this moment, Perfected Master Chu inexplicably stopped. Just when Lu Ping was at a loss for words, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. It was the mystic insect's enlightened master. Lu Ping was stunned for a moment, then he was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. "Uncle Master." Perfected Master Mysterious Ing grunted and said to Perfected Master Chu Xuanqing, "Shall we kill our way back?" Perfected Master Chu Xuanqing chuckled and said, "That's what I was thinking." "You deal with the cuttlefish spirit. I'll kill a few other demons to vent my anger." With that, he threw Lu Ping down and stuffed a few pills into his mouth. "Kid, you go back first. The old man is going to start a massacre. Don't blame me for not warning you. You've continuously exhausted your true essence. Be careful not to destroy your cultivation foundation." The two enlightened masters, who were at the peak of core forging stage, disappeared in a flash. Soon after, a deafening roar and a furious roar came from the distant sky. It was the leader of the demon clan, enlightened Master Mo Wei. When Lu Ping looked over, the distant sky seemed to be dyed by a vat of ink. An ink-colored painting rose up and continuously expanded its territory in the sky. Lu Ping smiled helplessly. At this moment, he was thrown onto a reef by perfected Master Chu. His body was extremely weak because of the exhaustion of true essence. Fortunately, Lu Ping's body had been tempered by the golden resilience pill and was much stronger than ordinary cultivators. Otherwise, after being injured twice because of the exhaustion of true essence, Lu Ping's cultivation foundation might really be damaged. Fortunately, Lu Ping didn't have to wait for long before the patrolling cultivators on Xianqi Island discovered Lu Ping. Previously, Lu Ping killed a core forging stage demon cultivator outside Xianqi Island. Then, he fought 3 core forging stage demon cultivators and killed one of them. This kind of divine power was already shocking to the cultivators on Xianqi Island. If it wasn't for Lu Ping's protection, Xianqi Island would have long been invaded by the demons and they would have died. Who wouldn't recognize him? Everyone hurriedly brought Lu Ping back to Xianqi Island. Hu Lili and Chen Lian rushed over when they heard the news. At this time, another 3 core forging stage enlightened masters rushed over. After hearing the rumors about Lu Ping, most of them didn't believe it and wanted to visit him. However, by this time, Lu Ping had already entered a quiet room to heal his injuries. The demons wanted to take advantage of Jinling Lu Tianling and Laozu's Dharma Manifestation Assembly to sneak into Tianling Mountain and assassinate the cultivators who were participating in the Dharma Manifestation Assembly. They intended to ruin Lu Tianling and Laozu's Dharma Manifestation Assembly, dampening the morale of the cultivators in the North Sea and provoking internal strife in the North Sea Alliance. However, they didn't expect that the demon warriors who sneaked into the Inner Sea would be stopped by one of the 3 truths and 4 spirits of Jinlings, 1 truth and 2 spirits. After a fierce battle, the 3 enlightened masters of Jinling displayed strength that shocked the North Sea cultivation world. 2 of them were at the 9th stage of core forging, and 1 was at the peak core forging stage. They defeated the demon warriors, killing 5 mid and late core forging stage enlightened masters. Just as the demon clan's death warriors sneaked into the internal endless sea, the late core forging cultivator of the demon clan, Reverend Mo Wei, set up a black frost fog formation outside of Xianqi Island, luring Jinling sect's Reverend Chu Xuanqing into the formation with the intention of killing him. Just as he was about to succeed, an early core forging cultivator from Jinling sect ruined his plan. Not only was the formation destroyed, but he also lost 2 core forging cultivators. Enlightened Master Mo Wei chased after Chu Xuanqing, but unexpectedly, he met Enlightened Master Black Moon who came to help. Enlightened Master Black Moon and Chu Xuanqing turned around and attacked. Enlightened Master Mo Wei was caught off guard and escaped with serious injuries. Of the remaining 10 core forging stage Enlightened Masters, 2 were killed and 3 were injured by Enlightened Master Black Moon. The rest were assassinated by Enlightened Master Black Moon along the way. Only then did they safely retreat to Jinling under the encirclement of the late core forging stage Enlightened Master Mo Wei. During this battle, it was rumored that Enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing had also reached the peak of core forging stage, achieving the golden core stage. This once again shocked the North Sea beast cultivators in the other sections. Jinling's strength had unknowingly reached such a level. Due to the cover of these famous core forging stage Enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing, the other Jinling cultivator who had shown brilliantly in this battle. Although Jinling's strength had also surprised many people, his strength had not reached the level where he could affect the balance of the North Sea's cultivation world like the other 4 core forging stage Enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing. Therefore, he received less attention. In addition, with the intentional concealment, the news of Lu Ping battling 3 core forging stage beast cultivators on Xianqi Island and killing a 5th layer core forging stage beast cultivator on Xianqi Island did not spread. Even so, the 2 incidents of him defeating Xianling sect's genius Ouyang Weijian with his great swordsmanship during the Dharma Idol Convention and helping Enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing break the Black Frost Mist Condensing Formation also caused his ranking on the North Sea Rookie list to rise to 29th place. He was the first core forging stage cultivator to enter the top 30 on the North Sea Rookie list. However, at this time, Lu Ping had already returned to the newly established Soundwave Manor on Tianling Mountain. Lu Ping only used a month to recover his injuries and true essence. However, Lu Ping did not dare to be careless because of enlightened Master Chu Xuanqing's warning. All these years, Lu Ping had been running around and had encountered many fortuitous encounters. His cultivation had grown rapidly, and his strength was tyrannical. He was also a master of alchemy, so the true essence in his body was vigorous and his foundation looked extremely solid. However, after this injury, many problems were exposed in Lu Ping's cultivation. His true essence was indeed vigorous, but compared to before, it was less pure. Perhaps because of the influence of the heart-forging pill, Lu Ping's cultivation had grown too quickly over the years. Although Lu Ping's foundation was still vigorous and solid compared to cultivators of the same level, how could Lu Ping let these flaws exist? What's more, the Linhai wave listening technique of the North Sea wave listening technique first focused on the purity of true essence cultivation. Lu Ping decided to go into seclusion to sort out what he had learned, and at the same time, completely consolidate his cultivation. Perhaps this would delay the progress of Lu Ping's cultivation, but in the long run, it was indeed beneficial. However, this seclusion lasted for 3 years. Chapter 355. A loud explosion sounded and 5 layers of light shone around Lu Ping. A dozen feet away from Lu Ping stood a young girl dressed in red. She looked to be about 12 or 13 years old. She was fuming as she watched Lu Ping easily fend off the minor technique she had just learned with just a minor defensive technique. I didn't expect Qin to master the Fire Phoenix clan's Samadhi True Fire in just over a year after she reached the core forging stage. Not bad. Lu Ping saw the angry expression on the young girl's face and hurriedly praised her. Sure enough, after hearing Lu Ping's praise, the young girl bitterly said, "So what? I can't even break your minor ability." Normally, it would be extremely difficult for a small defensive skill to block an attack from another small defensive skill. But this rule obviously didn't apply to Lu Ping. Not to mention, judging from the scene just now, Lu Ping's defensive skill had already refined 5 types of water attribute natural treasures at some point in time. Luan Yu appeared out of nowhere and said with a smile, "Qin, don't compare yourself to this freak. With your current minor ability, the Samadhi True Fire, even I wouldn't dare to face it head-on. Ordinary third-layer core forging cultivators would have to avoid it. Moreover, your Samadhi True Fire doesn't have 3 types of powerful fire seeds. Otherwise, even your big brother would have to retreat." The young girl wrinkled her nose and rolled her eyes at Luan Yu. "None of your business." As soon as he finished speaking, his clothes suddenly turned green and he appeared behind Lu Ping. His speed was so fast that it left one speechless. Lu Ping looked at Luan Yu, who had failed to curry favor with him, and found it funny. Luan Yu was also at a loss and blushed. Lu Ping reached into his sleeves and took out a pair of translucent jade bracelets. Lu Ping handed the bracelets to the young girl and smiled. "Qin, as your big brother, I haven't prepared a gift for you yet. Although these bracelets are amazing, they don't have much use for me without the following set of restrictions. Little Qin, take them and play with them." After that, Lu Ping pointed a finger at the young girl and taught her the method to control the ice and fire rings. Although the ice and fire bracelets were amazing, the restrictions within them were of both ice and fire attributes. Furthermore, 2 restrictions were needed to complement each other. This was clearly a specialized refining technique. However, Lu Ping only had a pair of such restrictions in his possession. There was no way to upgrade the bracelets, and with Lu Ping's current cultivation, the ice and fire bracelets wouldn't be of much use to him. As such, he simply gave them to the young girl as a gift. Furthermore, the bracelets contained 2 natural oddities. One of them was the infernal poison fire, which was considered powerful among fire attribute natural oddities. If combined with the young girl's Samadhi True Fire, it would bring out the best in each other. The young girl excitedly wore the bracelets on her wrists and occasionally touched them with her hands. When the bracelets came into contact, they would ring out, causing the young girl to giggle. After putting away the bracelets, The young girl turned to Luan Yu and softly snorted. Her lithe body turned, and the young girl suddenly disappeared. At the same time, a beautiful little bird chirped twice and flew towards a huge peach tree at the foot of the mountain. It was unknown when the peach tree had been built, but a huge house that looked like a bird's nest had already been built there. Luan Yu looked at the young girl flying away and smiled bitterly at Lu Ping. After Qin advanced to the core forging stage, she seems to have changed a lot. Her attitude towards me is also different. Lu Ping smiled and said, Qin has grown up. You shouldn't always coax her like a child. Luan Yu paused and said, in these 3 years, although your cultivation hasn't improved much, your strength has become more and more difficult for me to comprehend. Lu Ping sighed and said, it's still the same. Although my cultivation hasn't broken through, I have reached the mid-stage core forging stage. But this step is extremely difficult. Although I have world spirit water in my hands, I can't find the right path. This last step is too difficult. I have asked master and senior apprentice sisters for advice, but they said that this step needs to be comprehended by the cultivator themselves. Luan Yu pointed at him and smiled. How many cultivators are stuck at this step? You've only reached the 3rd layer for a few years, and now you're saying it's difficult? Seeing Luan Yu's reaction, Lu Ping smiled and said, let's not talk about each other. Brother Luan, didn't you also advance to the 2nd layer core forging stage? Not to mention, your alchemy skills have improved by leaps and bounds in these 3 years. Although I haven't wasted these 3 years, I haven't touched my furnace even once. But every time you see me, don't you sigh in admiration? Luan Yu chuckled and said, I'm also speaking the truth. Right now, your expression and temperament are even more unfathomable. Those who don't know you might think you're even more unfathomable. Lu Ping slapped his forehead and said, Brother Luan, your praise is too much for me to bear. You've taken good care of the spiritual herbs in the House of Gold these past few years. I'll take my leave first. When Lu Ping left the cultivation room, he saw Hu Lily drinking tea in the front hall of the cave. Lu Ping's eyes lit up and he said, You're also out of seclusion. How's the consolidation of your cultivation? The core forging stage is different from the blood condensation stage. I'd rather spend more time consolidating my cultivation. Hu Lily's eyes curved into crescents as she giggled. It's not as good as you say. I've been in the core forging stage for almost a year. This time, I'm here to give you something. After saying that, Hu Lily handed over a spirit beast pouch, a jade essence bottle, and a golden flying sword. Lu Ping's face lit up with joy. Hu Lily said, these past few years, we've basically gone through the spiritual herb garden on Tianling Mountain. With the amethyst bees and your reputation as an alchemy master, many of our fellow disciples have given you face. Now, the queen bee has reached the mid-stage of the blood condensation realm, and the colony has expanded to more than 700. Half of them have also advanced to the blood condensation realm. However, there's only a pitiful amount of royal jelly left. There's only this jade essence bottle left. There's a lot of amethyst honey, but according to your instructions, most of it has been returned to the owner of the spiritual herb garden. Lu Ping's face lit up with joy. He quickly said, Good. I didn't expect to get a bottle of amethyst royal jelly. This is already beyond my expectations. Not to mention, my amethyst bee Dao soldier array is now able to fight against a core forging realm expert. Hu Lily couldn't bear to see his smug look and reminded him, now that the news of you having an amethyst bee swarm has spread all over Tianling Mountain, aren't you afraid that someone will target your royal jelly? Lu Ping didn't mind and said, it's fine. If someone wants to target an alchemy master, even Fa Xiang Laozu will have to scrape a layer of oil off him. Hu Lily listened to his humorous words and knew that he already had a plan. She smiled, but didn't say anything else. Lu Ping looked at the last flying sword. As soon as his divine sense came into contact with the flying sword, the golden flying sword started buzzing. Lu Ping actually felt a sense of familiarity from the sword. It really is a sentient flying sword. No wonder it's the golden scale sword that has condensed 4 seals. The golden scale sword flew up from the stone table and fell into Lu Ping's hand. A vigorous stream of primary energy instantly soaked the golden scale sword. After a moment of refinement, it disappeared into Lu Ping's palm. Given Lu Ping's strength, the golden scale sword that had condensed 3 seals was no longer enough for him to use. Unfortunately, although Chen Lian's artifact refining technique had risen to fame in Zhenling, he was still lacking in the ability to refine a sentient magic treasure. That was why he had asked his master to take action. Hu Lili watched in surprise as Lu Ping refined the golden scale sword. She said, Chen Lian had asked his master, Sage Enigma Flame, to help upgrade the golden scale sword to the level of a sentient magic treasure. How can you refine the golden scale sword so quickly? Lu Ping smiled and said, the golden scale sword has been with me for several years. Now that the flying sword is sentient, it will save me a lot of trouble. Not to mention, this is the wondrous part of a sword technique. Hu Lili rolled her eyes at him and spat. Look at what you can do. It was rare for Lu Ping to see such an expression on Hu Lili's face. He could not stop himself from giving her a few more glances, causing Hu Lili to blush. Lu Ping found it amusing. Seeing that Hu Lili was about to fly into a rage out of humiliation, Lu Ping hastily asked, have you found a way to refine your sentient magic treasure? Hu Lili frowned and said, I have already thought about it. My master's faction mostly refine array discs into sentient magic treasures. It is the same for me. However, I have yet to choose which sentient magic treasure to use. Additionally, I have yet to gather all the spiritual materials needed to refine the sentient magic treasure. Lu Ping looked at Hu Lili with an amused expression and said, how did you forget about me? Hearing the double entendre in his words, Hu Lili could not stop herself from becoming flustered. However, she saw that Lu Ping had already brought out a piece of seemingly charred peachwood and 2 intact peachwood branches. He said, these 2 are variant wood-type spiritual materials. See if there are any that are suitable for you. Take them. Hu Lili looked at the charred peachwood, which sporadically had traces of lightning flashing on its surface. She exclaimed, 1,000-year-old lightning-struck peachwood? I did not expect you to have such a treasure in your hands. Now, not only do I have the spiritual materials for my sentient magic treasure, I can also decide on the choice of sentient magic treasure. Hu Lili was not polite to Lu Ping. She put away the lightning-struck peachwood and then took out a bottle of water from her storage bracelet. She said, courtesy demands reciprocity. You are not the only one who has had fortuitous encounters in these years. This is a heaven and earth strange object that I and my master obtained when we were exploring an overseas ruin. It is called clear spirit stone milk. This is an absolutely wonderful object used to refine the 3 pure true pupils. It is not inferior to the clear spirit water that you gave me. I know that you have already completed the minor magical ability of the 3 pure true pupils. However, if you continue to refine it, the 3 pure true pupils can be further improved. Lu Ping was overjoyed. He said, this is really a good treasure. The 3 pure true pupils is of great help to me. This time, it really helped me a lot. Hu Lili faintly said, the one who helped me is you. I was able to advance to the core forging stage so quickly because of your help. The heart-dissolving pill, the 3 jade spirit pill, the 7-step marked pill, the enchanting thought pill, and the clear spirit water. Even my master has a whole new level of respect for me. Now, there is also the 1,000-year-old lightning-struck peachwood. I can't let people say that I am just a flower vase, but I can't help you at all. Lu Ping frowned. He said, is there someone talking behind your back? Don't worry about it. If you don't attract jealousy, then you are mediocre. When your strength increases, these people who talk behind your back will become people who flatter you. Right now, you are being envied because your strength is not strong enough. Hu Lili nodded and no longer said anything. Lu Ping knew that although Hu Lili usually looked indifferent, she was actually very arrogant and had a strong self-esteem. Being slandered like this, it was inevitable that she would be a little depressed. So he asked, you have already condensed your gold core, so you also need to open a mansion on Tianling Mountain. Have you chosen the location? When the time comes, everyone can get together and have a good time. Sure enough, Hu Lili smiled and said, I haven't thought about it yet. In the blink of an eye, we haven't seen each other for 3 years. These years, everyone's cultivation has improved, and most of us have begun to take charge of things on our own. The time we spend together has decreased. Taking advantage of the opening of the mansion, we can all get together. After sending Hu Lily away, Lu Ping returned to the cultivation room. Lu Ping, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly shook. Suddenly, 12 five-colored beads appeared around him. Each bead seemed to be breeding a cloud of dense qi. When he looked carefully, he found that this cloud of dense qi was actually divided into 3 parts. Each part was like a strange flood dragon with a snake's body, crocodile's claws, and carp's whiskers. It was exactly the same as Lu Ping's divine sense in the gold core. During Lu Ping's 3 years of breeding, the 12 gentian beads had all been upgraded to 3 treasured restrictions. At this moment, a huge and white lotus flower suddenly appeared above Lu Ping's head. The lotus flower bloomed into 9 grades, and it slowly rotated above Lu Ping's head. After the lotus flower appeared, the 12 gentian beads around it all began to flicker with the rotation of the lotus flower. The surface of the 9-grade white jade lotus also constantly flickered with the gentian beads. Every time the lotus flower lit up, there would be a complex picture on its surface. These pictures were intertwined with each other as if forming a whole, or like an array diagram. However, this array diagram now only had a corner that had not been completely outlined and was still a blank. Every time the white jade lotus flower lit up, a few new lines would be outlined on the corner of the array diagram on the lotus flower surface. Impressively, it was Lu Ping using his divine sense to carve the array diagram on the surface of the white jade lotus flower. Looking at the array diagram on the surface of the huge white jade lotus flower, it was obvious that Lu Ping had been cultivating this white jade lotus for a long time. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Ping put away the gentian beads around him. The white jade lotus flower flickered for a moment and then disappeared behind Lu Ping's head. However, when Lu Ping thought about the terrifying consumption of true essence when he used the complete life gentian array diagram, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. It wasn't that Lu Ping's true essence wasn't vigorous enough, but that this array diagram was really helpless. There was nothing to say about its power, but it couldn't be used for long. Then, Lu Ping found Landslide. It still only had 1 enchantment treasure, but Lu Ping was quite pleased with its power after it was upgraded. However, it was hard to find a similar water elemental enchantment treasure for a mystic treasure like Landslide. Lu Ping stood up and walked out of the cave dwelling. 3 years ago, he had made a great contribution to the sect. For the past 3 years, he had been cultivating in seclusion. It was time for him to ask for his reward. Chapter 356. In the previous battle on Xianxi Island, Lu Ping had personally killed 2 core forging stage demon cultivators, one of whom was a 5th-layer core forging expert. The fall of such a cultivator was enough to attract the attention of Dharma idol Laozu. During Laozu's Dharma idol assembly, the demon race secretly mobilized their forces to attack Xinling. At first, the major sects of the North Sea were gloating. Ever since the Beast Tide, the major sects had suffered heavy losses. Only Xinling had suffered the least losses. Most sects were prepared to see Xinling make a fool out of himself. However, to their great surprise, Xinling displayed strength that shocked the entire North Sea cultivation world. Xinling's famous experts, who hadn't shown themselves in front of people for decades, showed up with 2 peak core forging stage experts and 2 9th-layer core forging stage cultivators. Not only was Xinling unaffected, but the demons who came to attack were also beaten to a pulp. 13 core forging stage demon cultivators died in a row, and several were seriously injured. However, not a single high-level cultivator of Xinling died. This was the most glorious victory for human cultivators since the beginning of the Great War between humans and demons, and it made Xinling famous in the North Sea. Lu Ping held the harvest of the 2 core forging stage demon cultivators in his hand. After 3 years of accumulation, these harvests were basically used up. Among them was a water attribute natural treasure that Lu Ping had refined into his protective vigor qi. Now, Lu Ping's water curtain True Kong had fused 5 types of water attribute natural treasures. In addition, Lu Ping's cultivation was far stronger than an ordinary person's. so its defensive ability was no weaker than a Dharma treasure with 2 or 3 treasure seals. Unfortunately, the two's best Dharma treasures were destroyed by Lu Ping's swordsmanship. Otherwise, Lu Ping's harvest would be even greater. Even so, Lu Ping still obtained a lot of spirit herbs, spirit materials, and spirit stones from them. The outer endless sea was vast, and there were countless natural treasures in the deep sea. It was the world of the demons, so it was only natural that the two of them had such wealth. Chonghua Mansion was still above the small lake. Lu Tianling Laozu didn't move the mansion to the spirit vein on top of Tianling Mountain, just because he had entered the Dharma idol stage. Lu Ping walked across the lake. In the lake, the demon soldiers raised by Lu Tianling Laozu all lined up neatly to let Lu Ping pass. Lu Ping found it a bit funny. Since the last time these demon soldiers were cleaned up by Samling before the Dharma idol assembly, these demon soldiers saw that he was a lot more well-behaved. When entering the Chonghua Palace, Lu Ping suddenly had a feeling of being in a trance. His body was suddenly surrounded by a thick spirit qi that was far stronger than the outside world. This was the spirit qi concentration of a large spirit vein? Lu Ping was a little surprised. Then, he realized that this was the Avatar Great Ancestor's skill, which allowed them to comprehend the mysteries of the void. Although the location of the Chonghua Palace didn't change, it was only a door. The real palace of Chonghua Palace had probably been moved to the top of Tianling Mountain by the Tianling Grand Ancestor. As soon as Lu Ping entered the Chonghua Palace, he saw his junior sister, Jiang Xinxian, sitting in the middle of the Chonghua Palace. She was holding her chin and thinking about something. Seeing Lu Ping come in, Jiang Xuanchuan's eyes lit up. She jumped in front of Lu Ping, reached out and said, "Ninth senior brother, my fragrance pill, my amethyst pill, and the playmate you found for me?" Lu Ping handed her a jade bottle helplessly and said, "Junior sister, this fragrance pill is just a small thing. You are also a core forging stage cultivator. What's the use of this thing?" Jiang Xinxian took the jade bottle, opened it, and smiled with satisfaction. Then she reached out and said, "There is more." Lu Ping took out 3 jade bottles and said, "Although I put amethyst honey in it, it is still a cultivation pill after all. It can't be eaten as a snack." Jiang Xinxian made a face at him and said in a rough voice, "I know, ninth senior brother, you are really long-winded. By the way, what about the partner you found for me?" Jiang Xinxian immediately looked behind her and made a gesture of, "You are lying to me." She curled her lips and asked sullenly. Lu Ping smiled slightly. There was no one behind him just now, but suddenly a 13 or 14-year-old girl flashed out. The girl was obviously a naughty girl. Half of her body stretched out from behind Lu Ping and made a face at Jiang Xinxian. A silver light flashed in Jiang Xuanchuan's eyes, and she said with great joy, "It turns out that you are the little phoenix of ninth senior brother. I didn't expect you to have transformed." The silver light flashed in Jiang Xuanchuan's eyes was obviously a kind of magical power that could see through Lu Qin's background. Lu Qin tilted her head slightly and snorted softly, obviously saying, "Of course. Let's go. I will take you to play. Tianling Mountain is too deserted. No one wants to play with me. A fruit tree in Dad's spiritual herb garden seems to be ripe. I will take you to steal the fruit to eat. I guarantee that no one can catch us." Lu Ping saw that the two of them disappeared in a short while, but he didn't care and walked towards the back of the Chonghua Palace. Tianling Laozu had obviously already noticed Lu Ping's arrival and was already waiting for him in the back of the palace. After Lu Ping bowed, Tianling Laozu looked at him and said, "You have gained a lot in these 3 years. I was worried that your cultivation would grow too fast, and you would lose your peace of mind. Now it seems that I worried too much." Lu Ping thanked his teacher. Lu Tianling Laozu suddenly asked, "Are you here for the sex reward?" Lu Ping was stunned. He didn't expect his teacher to ask first, so he didn't hide it. He smiled generously and said, "Teacher, you are a divine fortune teller." "That's right." Lu Tianling Laozu giggled and said, "It's not that I am a divine fortune teller. It's just that you are too cunning. You are usually generous and don't compete with others, but you are actually someone who can't take a loss. Otherwise, Why would you wait 3 years to get the reward? Lu Ping knew that his teacher had seen through his thoughts. He blushed and chuckled. Teacher is really perceptive. Disciples' little tricks are really not worth mentioning. Tianling Laozu reached out, and the space in front of Lu Ping suddenly rippled like water. A dark steel token appeared from the water. Lu Ping reached out and took it. The space immediately returned to normal. Tianling Laozu continued, Go. You didn't wait for nothing these past 3 years. Your performance at the Dharma Manifestation Gathering in Xianxi Island, plus your reputation as an alchemy grandmaster, is enough to attract the sect's attention. I will give you the opportunity to get the reward. What you get will depend on your own luck. After leaving Chonghua Manor, Lu Ping was still a little confused. He didn't know what his teacher meant. Could it be that the sect still hadn't decided on his reward? Lu Ping walked all the way to the shore of the small lake. He saw that second senior sister Li Xuanru seemed to have been standing there for quite some time. Lu Ping was surprised. He knew that second senior sister was probably waiting here on purpose, so he stopped and bowed to Li Xuanru. When Li Xuanru saw Lu Ping coming over, she smiled and asked, Junior brother, are you here for the sect's reward? Lu Ping was surprised and said, Could it be that even senior sister guessed it? Li Xuanru saw Lu Ping's embarrassed expression, so she smiled and said, I also heard teacher mention it before. But junior brother, do you know where to get the reward this time? I was informed by the sect before, and teacher also gave me a token. Lu Ping took out the token and turned it over. He said, On one side of the token is written, pill, and on the other side is written, weapon. It should be from the alchemy pavilion in the weapon refining hall, right? When Li Xuanru saw the token in Lu Ping's hand, her expression showed that she had expected it. She said, This token is called the inheritance token in our sect. It is the key to enter and exit the sect's major inheritance grounds. It was condensed by Dharma Manifestation Laozu using a trace of void power. It can only be used twice, and after it is used, the token will disappear. The inheritance grounds? Lu Ping was surprised and said, I didn't expect the sect to let me enter the inheritance grounds twice. When Li Xuanru saw Lu Ping's expression, she couldn't help but feel a bit amused and angry. She said, Junior brother, you are one of the 5 alchemy grandmasters in our sect. In terms of status, even a late core forging stage enlightened master is inferior to you. The sect's inheritance grounds are naturally open to you. Not only you, but as long as the sect's new core forging stage enlightened masters have a chance to enter the sect's inheritance grounds. Li Xuanru paused. Seeing Lu Ping's stunned expression, she asked with uncertainty, Junior brother, don't tell me you don't even know about this? Seeing Lu Ping nodding in a daze, perfected Master Li Xuanru giggled and said, What should I say about you? After bidding farewell to second senior sister, Lu Ping was about to go to the refining hall to have a look, but he heard Master Li Xuanru say, The alchemy pavilion's inheritance grounds have always been guarded by the sect's only alchemy grandmaster, Tianlu Laozu. These years, it has been under the control of his eldest disciple, Master Xian Yan. Master Xian Yan and Master Xian Jing are fellow apprentices. When the time comes, you only need to show Master's token and enter the alchemy pavilion's inheritance grounds. Lu Ping knew that second senior sister had most likely come under Master's instructions. She purposely said this to him. From the day Lu Ping became Master Xian Yan's disciple, Lu Ping could sense that the relationship between the Chonghua sect and the alchemy pavilion was not harmonious. Now that second senior sister had said this, could it be that the alchemy pavilion was going to have some problems? However, Lu Ping did not care too much about this. He had the inheritance token, so no matter what, the people of the alchemy pavilion could not stop him. Lu Ping did not believe that Tianlu Laozu would personally make things difficult for him when the time came. At the very least, when second senior sister mentioned Tianlu Laozu, her expression was quite respectful. Lu Ping originally planned to go to the refining hall, which was closer to the Chonghua sect. However, he remembered that the sect would give every new enlightened master a chance to enter the inheritance grounds, so he went to the Heaven's Spirit Hall, which was closer to the Chonghua sect. There was naturally more than one inheritance grounds for Zhenling. After so many years, the enlightened master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall was still enlightened master Profound Miao. When Lu Ping entered the Heaven Spirit Hall, he saw Enlightened Master Profound Miao flipping through a paper book with great interest. When he saw Lu Ping, he was surprised. The Heaven Spirit Hall was usually a place for blood condensation disciples or disciples who had just entered the core forging realm. Unless there was an urgent matter like when the demon race attacked the Heaven Spirit Hall, other core forging cultivators would rarely come. Lu Ping walked forward and explained his purpose. Enlightened Master Profound Miao said with some surprise, "You are Senior Sister Tian Ling's 9th disciple, the Alchemy Grandmaster Lu Xianping? How come you haven't entered the inheritance grounds yet?" Lu Ping said with some embarrassment, "Disciple traveled outside in my early years. When I came back, my cultivation had already reached this level, but I didn't know that the sect had such a rule. My other friends thought that I had already been to the inheritance grounds because of my cultivation, so they didn't remind me." Enlightened Master Profound Miao listened to Lu Ping's explanation and smiled. "So there is such a situation. Give me your nameplate." Lu Ping handed over his nameplate. Enlightened Master Profound Miao scanned it with his divine sense and said, "So you really haven't entered the inheritance grounds. Come with me." The two turned around the back hall and came to a secret room. Enlightened Master Profound Miao struck a few spells on the ground. The dark secret room suddenly lit up and a huge teleportation array rose from the ground. Enlightened Master Profound Miao turned to Lu Ping and said, "Through the teleportation array, you can be sent to our sect's Flying Cloud Grotto. That is the inheritance grounds of our sect's core forging stage cultivators for tens of thousands of years. There are many cultivation methods, spells, and even divine abilities passed down by our predecessors. There are also all kinds of miscellaneous knowledge. You can stay there for a month. How much you can gain will depend on your comprehension. Remember, don't bite off more than you can chew. Only the most suitable for you is the best." Lu Ping sincerely bowed and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Martial Uncle." Enlightened Master Profound Miao nodded and suddenly thought of something. He said, "I heard that you have mastered several powerful minor swordsmanship abilities." Lu Ping was about to walk towards the teleportation array when he heard this. He didn't expect that his reputation in the sect was already so high. He said, "Junior has indeed mastered a few minor swordsmanship abilities. What advice does Martial Uncle have for me?" Enlightened Master Profound Miao said, "If you want to stay in the inheritance grotto for a month, you can leave 1 or 2 of your minor swordsmanship inheritances there. This can also be considered a way for our sect to pass on its legacy. Of course, whether or not you want to leave an inheritance is entirely up to the cultivator. The sect won't force you." Lu Ping nodded and walked to the center of the teleportation array. Enlightened Master Profound Miao activated the array, and Lu Ping disappeared from the secret room in an instant. The Flying Clouds Grotto was not a very high-class grotto. Its only advantage was that it was big but extremely short. The terrain inside the grotto was rugged, with strange peaks and dangerous mountains everywhere. Cultivators could explore the grotto in a secluded and mysterious place. No wonder Zhenling's sect built the inheritance ground for core forging cultivators here. Lu Ping appeared on top of a small hill in the Soaring Clouds Grotto. Looking at such a wide yet short space, Lu Ping felt a bit uncomfortable. There were spirit energy fluctuations from restriction formations everywhere. Clearly, they were set up by the previous cultivators to protect their inheritances. Lu Ping spread out his divine sense, but didn't find anything. It seemed that he had to break the restrictions again and again in order to see the inheritances. Even if he continuously broke the restrictions in 1 month, how many inheritances would he be able to open? And how many inheritances would be suitable for him? Chapter 357. How many core forging stage cultivators had appeared in Zhenling's tens of thousands of years of inheritance? If each of these cultivators had left one of their inheritances in the Soaring Cloud Grotto, how many different inheritances would there be in the Soaring Cloud Grotto after tens of thousands of years of accumulation? It was likely that no one in Zhenling knew about the number of inheritances. However, Lu Ping knew that the soaring cloud grotto might not be the highest level of inheritance in Jinling, but it was the most popular inheritance in the history of Jinling for core forging stage cultivators. The truly high-level inheritances in Jinling were not easily accessible to ordinary core forging stage cultivators. Only the soaring cloud grotto had a low threshold to enter. Moreover, the soaring cloud grotto was like a Jinling. It was a microcosm of the entire North Sea's cultivation world for tens of thousands of years. The essence of too many core forging stage cultivators had condensed here. It was a great attraction for cultivators who had just entered the core forging stage, or even the mid-stage core forging stage. Lu Ping had already stayed in the soaring cloud grotto for 10 days. During these 10 days, Lu Ping had found tens of inheritances in various corners of the grotto. These inheritances were of all kinds and could even be described as bizarre. The places where these inheritances were stored were also varied. Perhaps he could pick up a stone from the ground, and there would be an ingenious senior cultivator writing down a part of the inheritance on it. At that moment, Lu Ping was next to a pile of ashes from a bonfire. In his hand were a few bones that were clearly leftovers. Earlier, when Lu Ping came to this valley, he had wanted to take a break and sort out the various inheritances he had observed in the grotto. However, he did not expect that his divine sense would capture a sharp sword energy. Thus, he found a part of the inheritance on the bones. Someone had used divine sense to engrave a set of sword technique inheritance on the bones. Unfortunately, the cultivator who recorded this inheritance was clearly weaker than Lu Ping. This sword technique was not compatible with the sword technique that Lu Ping cultivated and could only be used as a reference. Lu Ping threw the bones to the side. Just as he got up, he felt something strange. A breeze seemed to have a life of its own as it circled around Lu Ping twice before blowing into the distance. Lu Ping's heart moved. He couldn't care about sorting out what he had gained these days. The escape light flashed under his feet, and he went with the breeze. On the side of a cliff, Lu Ping looked at the smooth cliff wall in front of him with some surprise. There were several inheritances left by cultivators on it. However, after Lu Ping looked at it, there was not much novelty in it. Only the breeze that seemed to be psychic surprised Lu Ping. If it was not for Lu Ping's divine sense that was far superior to ordinary people, he would not be able to detect the abnormality of this breeze. However, it was a pity that when Lu Ping chased here, the breeze had disappeared without a trace. Lu Ping looked at the cliff in front of him as if he was hesitating about something. Finally, he seemed to have made up his mind. His eyes suddenly flashed with blue light. Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils had now begun to fuse with the 4th natural oddity, the clear spirit stone milk. His ability to see through the falsehood had greatly increased. After a moment, Lu Ping's expression became happy, but it was soon followed by some hesitation. This flat cliff wall was indeed used by cultivators to hide their inheritances, just as Lu Ping expected. However, this restriction was too brilliant. Not only was it not discovered by others, but many later cultivators left their inheritances on this cliff wall. If Lu Ping wanted to break the restriction, these inheritances would inevitably be destroyed. Of course, Lu Ping could also make a copy of these inheritances. However, when these inheritances were left behind by cultivators, they were all engraved with their divine sense. More or less, they retained some of the cultivator's comprehension and concepts. Lu Ping could make a copy of the inheritance, but the trace of the cultivator's comprehension would inevitably disappear. The Flying Cloud Grotto was the place of inheritance for Jinling, so the most taboo thing was to destroy other people's inheritances. Lu Ping hesitated for a while, but in the end, he decided to take the risk. From the breeze, Lu Ping could feel that the things behind this restriction were definitely of great use to him. Just in case, Lu Ping first used a few stones to carve the inheritances on the cliff wall, then placed them to the side. Lu Ping stood before the cliff wall, his hands suddenly forming hand seals. Ever since Lu Ping obtained the mysterious purple jade slip from Fei Ling Island, he had been studying it every day and had become proficient in many restrictions. Not to mention, this was a place of inheritance. Although the restrictions on the cliff wall were mysterious, they were not difficult to break. Lu Ping did his best to carefully open a hole in the magic formation, but it still affected one of the inheritances on the cliff wall. Looking at the inheritance that was erased, Lu Ping sighed helplessly. Then, he suddenly went into a hole that suddenly appeared on the cliff wall. This was actually the place where a senior cultivator died. Lu Ping looked at the corpse of a cultivator sitting cross-legged in the cave. After years of erosion, the corpse had long decayed, leaving only a skeleton. Beside the skeleton was a small flag that fluttered without any wind. It was the source of the strange breeze from a while ago. Lu Ping looked at the cultivator sitting cross-legged in the cave. Lu Ping carefully scanned the cave with his divine sense. Aside from the small banner, he could not find anything else. He could not help but shake his head in regret. Then, he focused all his attention on the small banner. Cyan light flashed within Lu Ping's eyes. He could only see what seemed to be a hidden spirit within the small banner. Lu Ping's expression flickered. In the end, he probed the small banner with his divine sense. At the same time, a water-blue halo of light suddenly overflowed from Lu Ping's body. It converged into a fine stream and formed a circle around the small banner. It was like a spirit snake waiting for an opportunity to strike. A loud bang rang out within Lu Ping's divine sense. Lu Ping's entire body could not help but sway. Next, within Lu Ping's core space, the three strange WIRMs that had been condensed into a golden core roared in unison. They constantly swam around the surface of the golden core, and the divine sense attack from the small banner was immediately neutralized by Lu Ping. Lu Ping breathed a long sigh of relief. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground and silently calmed the turbulence in his divine sense. At the same time, he was also sorting out the inheritance that had been transmitted from the small banner during the divine sense attack. It was said that after a cultivator entered the Dharma phase, the Dharma phase was almost the cultivator's second life. Even if the Dharma phase Laozu's physical body was destroyed, he could rely on the Dharma phase to survive and possess a body. Moreover, the Dharma phase possession was different from the Golden Core possession. After the Golden Core possession, the person who was possessed would lose most of their self-awareness and their spiritual power. However, the Dharma phase possession did not have such concerns. It was just that it would hinder future cultivation. Lu Ping did not expect that the senior cultivator in front of him was actually a late core forging cultivator when he was alive. Like Lu Ping, the senior cultivator's divine sense was also far stronger than cultivators of the same level. Before he entered the Dharma phase, the strength of the divine sense condensed in his golden core was already comparable to that of the Dharma phase Laozu. The only thing he lacked was the final step of completely fusing his divine sense with his spiritual essence to form the Dharma phase. Before this cultivator died, he stripped all of his divine sense from his golden core and sealed it in the small flag. No one knew how many years had passed, but the divine sense sealed in the small flag had already disappeared. Only a spiritual sense was left behind, relying on the small flag to wander around the Flying Clouds grotto from time to time. However, it did not attract the attention of cultivators anymore. Although Lu Ping had gained a lot during this time, there were very few things that could be used directly except for the divine sense inheritance he obtained in the cliff cave. Lu Ping now happened to be lacking magic treasures for flying. The discovery of a minor magical power of the escape technique could make up for one of Lu Ping's shortcomings. In the end, escape techniques were only used to hurry and escape. The two had one thing in common, which was that they had to be fast. In addition to that, escape techniques could also be used in another way, which was concealment. By making it so that the opponent could not find it, one could naturally escape with their life. Lu Ping stretched out his hands, and the aqua-blue light appeared again, enveloping the entire stream. Lu Ping activated the water manipulation technique, but he was unable to absorb any water from the stream. At that moment, Lu Ping closed his eyes and his divine sense penetrated the stream along with his quintessential essence. After an unknown amount of time, the blue light that enveloped the stream suddenly disappeared. Lu Ping slowly opened his eyes and a trace of joy flashed through them. Lu Ping looked at the stream in front of him and his body shook. Suddenly, 18 identical Lu Ping appeared in a row and flew in all directions, disappearing in an instant. A moment later, the stream that had been unable to be controlled by Lu Ping suddenly rolled up a stream of water from the center. A moment later, it formed a human figure. If it was not Lu Ping, who could it be? Lu Ping's divine sense probed the 18 figures that had previously escaped, and the corners of his mouth immediately revealed a satisfied smile. He did not expect this escape technique to have the same effect as the art of sea deception. It actually directly raised the power of the art of sea deception to the level of a small magical power. Now he had another trump card in his hands. At this moment, the stream in Lu Ping's eyes had once again returned to the appearance of ordinary flowing water. Lu Ping held a handful of water and fiercely washed his face. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind. Why not hide a set of inheritance in this stream? And with his own means, he could hide it even deeper. At that time, he would see which lucky junior could obtain his inheritance. It was not that Lu Ping deliberately set the threshold of inheritance very high, but that the inheritance that Lu Ping wanted to leave behind must have a certain understanding of water to be able to comprehend the mystery of his inheritance. Otherwise, even if Lu Ping carved the inheritance in the most obvious place that everyone could see, it would be useless if the later cultivators could not comprehend it. There was no one in the world of cultivation who was not extremely cautious when it came to inheritance. They would rather strive for perfection and cause the inheritance to be interrupted for tens or hundreds of years than to make up the numbers. Just as this thought flashed through Lu Ping's mind, the entire stream began to stir. Under Lu Ping's control, streams of water formed one after another above the stream, until all 1,296 water swords were formed. Then, the small water swords instantly formed into a huge water sword that consumed almost a third of the water in the entire stream. Lu Ping's divine sense instantly wrapped around this huge water sword. Within it, he inscribed the cultivation method of the sword technique of true essence one breath, as well as his own cultivation experience. After thinking for a moment, Lu Ping used his divine sense to conceal a final sentence. Sword technique of true essence one breath is suspected to be the foundation sword technique of the Central Plains Yulon River's Koi demon race's great divine ability, the Heaven's Gate sword formation. If the later generation wants to cultivate it, they must be extremely cautious of the Koi demon race. After enjoying the feeling of a senior expert, Lu Ping nodded in satisfaction. Then, the entire water sword suddenly disintegrated, turning back into water that once again gathered in the stream. In Lu Ping's divine sense, the entire stream already contained traces of sharp qi. However, this sharp qi was hidden very deeply, and it was extremely difficult for ordinary cultivators to detect it. Only cultivators who cultivated pure water attribute techniques and had a deep understanding of it would be able to detect the existence of the sword technique of true essence one breath after the escape technique hidden in the stream. After lingering in the land of inheritance for another month, the nameplate that Lu Ping wore suddenly shone with a silver light. In an instant, Lu Ping's figure was covered by the silver light, and then he disappeared. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.